Chapter 100. After bidding farewell to Yachu, Nangongzhe was still thinking. It's not only about himself, but also about all ninjas in the world. In the written history of the ninja world, most of the time there were large and small wars. Countless ninjas were trained, but they were also killed by the meat grinder of war one after another. After so many years, ninjutsu, about the art of attack, can be said to be flourishing in the ninja world. But what about the people? It's still in a relatively low-level state. It's still a single family farming a few acres of thin land. Nangongzhe once lived in a village under wood leaf for a long time. The farmers there were still facing the yellow soil with their backs to the sky. Their hard work every day might have turned into nothing because of God's displeasure. As for ninjas? Indeed, ninjas can help farmers flatten the land and irrigate crops. But the cost of hiring a ninja is enough for an ordinary family to eat and wear for half a year. How can the poor farmers have so much money to hire ninjas to help them grow crops? Needless to say, most ninjas have bad tempers, and if they don't take care of them well, they may lose their lives. The only people who truly understand the convenience brought to their lives by ninjas are those high-ranking officials, dignitaries, and wealthy merchants. Onizen, why are you standing at the door? Just when Nangongzhe was thinking, a familiar voice came to his ear. Without guessing, it's naturally his sister Nangongro. Looking up again, the door of his home is in front of him. What, are you done with Kiba Hospital? Seeing Nangongro standing behind him, Nangongzhe asked casually. I'm recently in charge of the inpatient department, and I just changed shifts. I came back first. By the way, I have something to tell you. Nangongro slightly explained the reason why she came home so early and somewhat excitedly said to Nangongzhe, You called our old friend to come home, right? Nangongzhe looked at the little girl's appearance and knew what she wanted to say. Ah. The little girl was also a bit confused. She obviously didn't say these things to her brother. How did her brother know? Nangongzhe looked at Nangongro standing in front of him with a slightly dazed look, stretched out his hand and knocked Nangongro's head, and then said, I just saw Yabuki on the way back, and chatted for a while. She told me everything. After listening to Nangongzhe's words, Nangongro's face was not surprised, only regret. I knew that I couldn't tell Yabuki so early. If something is known by Yabuki, it won't be hidden for long. If Yo was here, who knows what she would say about these two siblings. The words she said were actually the same. Well, don't say that about Yabuki. Why you still standing here? Hurry up and come in. Nangongzhe didn't wait for his sister's reaction, and took her hand and walked into his house. You two came back together. Seeing Nangongzhe and Nangongro come back together, Mishiro looked at the two siblings with some surprise. After all, Nangongro is going to work in Kiba Hospital, and Nangongzhe said this morning that he had to go to Hokage's office to do something. The two of them coming home together is indeed a relatively small thing. I just saw brother in a daze at the door, so I came in together. Nangongro said, but then seemed to think of something. Brother, how's the thing you're going to do? Nangongzhe looked at his sister helplessly. After all, this matter is quite troublesome. His sister knows what's going on, but she doesn't care about it, which makes Nangongzhe feel very helpless. Thing? Mishiro actually saw Nangongzhe get up early in the morning, and knew that Nangongzhe must have something important to do. But looking at Nangongzhe's slightly frowned brows, he didn't ask in detail. Since Nangongzhe is now back, he naturally has to ask to satisfy his curiosity. It's nothing. 3 generations has promised me that I can stop my ninja work indefinitely. But they also asked me to help take care of Shinakushina and her child. Nangongro nodded, and then said, Since 9 Tails attacked the village, Tsunade-sama has cured Sinai Q-san's injury, but Sinai Q-san hasn't come to Kiba Hospital to work. I'm also a little worried about Sinai Q-san since 3 generations asked us to take care of Sinai Q-san. So naturally, it's not good to refuse. Speaking of which, Nangongzhe turned his head to look at Mishiro. Do you know that Ruru has taken a lot of work for you? Work? Mishiro was also a little confused, and didn't know what Nangongzhe was talking about. Sure enough, this girl didn't even tell Mishiro to give me a surprise. With the little girl alone, she naturally can't cook so many dishes with so many old friends. In the end, I still have to trouble Mashiro, and the little girl didn't even tell Mashiro this. Isn't it because she's afraid that Mashiro will expose this matter to me? Ah. The little girl was also a little panicked. Mashiro-san, it's like this. Because brother hasn't come back for a long time, this time he will stay at home for a long time. So I thought of inviting all the friends who helped me and my brother to the house to have a meal together. After listening to Nangong Ro's explanation, Mashiro understood what Nangong Ro wanted to do. He felt that it was acceptable, so he nodded. But then he thought of something. When did you arrange it? Let me have time to prepare. Nangong Ro and Xianxia's little faces turned red. Mashiro knew that things were going to be bad. Tonight. Looking at the clock hanging on the wall, Mashiro only felt that he was in a bad mood. According to Nangongja and Nangong Ro's meaning, there will be a lot of people coming. But now it's only 7 or 8 hours until dinner time. The preparation was a little rushed. After all, most Japanese people have a system of sharing food when they eat. Everyone has their own table. In this way, the preparation will be very cumbersome. Okay, there's still some time. I'll help too. Nangongja rubbed his sister's head, trying to cheer her up. Okay, then let's hurry up and prepare together. Nangong Ro nodded and agreed. Although they looked a little bitter, being able to do all kinds of trivial things together was the most precious gift for them, which they would not allow anyone to take away. Chapter 101. The afternoon passed by in a hurry. Little Linger, Mashiro, and Nangong Ro were all busy in the kitchen, and Nangongja was kicked out of the kitchen early. The 3 girls claimed that, the kitchen is a woman's battlefield, how can a boy step in? Then they pushed Nangongja out of the kitchen. Nangongja had no choice but to clean up the living room. He was preparing to entertain the guests, although some of his old friends were invited to come over for dinner. But Nangongja still didn't know exactly how many people his sister invited, so he could only prepare as many things as possible. There were too many people coming, and it was too late to prepare. Coincidentally, Nangongja had just finished cleaning up the living room when his doorbell rang. Left with no choice, Nangongja walked to the door and opened it. He wanted to see who had arrived so early. Nangongjun, a slightly short figure, stood in front of Nangongja's door. The silver-gray hair made Nangongja recognize him instantly. So Ruru also invited you? I was still wondering who was the first one to come here. Nangongja scratched his head and let Kakashi enter the house first. Sorry to bother you. Kakashi entered the room and saw the 3 girls busy in the kitchen. He greeted them by the way. What? It turned out to be you, little pervert. Little Linger looked back at the person who came in and found that it was Kakashi. His expression became a little impatient, and he even started to curse. Pervert. Nangongja looked at the 2 of them with some doubts. Although Nangongja knew that Jiraiya had given some of his indescribable novels to Kakashi, he didn't know what the specific situation was. After all, in Nangongja's impression, Kakashi was generally a very cold person. He really couldn't relate to the word pervert. Oniai-san, you don't know, this guy once slept in a tree near our house. Then, because he made a strange sound when he slept, Little Linger went to see what happened. She found that his saliva was dripping to the ground. There was also a book called Heaven on the Ground. I knew it wasn't a good thing just by looking at the cover. How can a person who reads this kind of book be a good guy? Little Linger seemed to think that Nangongja didn't know about these things, so she ran to the front and hugged Nangongja's arm. By the way, she looked at Kakashi, who was standing in front of her, with a look of contempt. And Kakashi was probably still young, and that kind of thick-skinned face hasn't been fully developed yet. For a moment, he was stared at by Little Linger and Nangongja, and his face turned red, and he became shy. Okay, Little Linger, can't you see that Kakashi Oniai-san is shy? A good child can't always hold on to other people's bad points and tell others as a joke. Although Nangongja also felt that Kakashi was so young, and it was a bit inappropriate for him to read that kind of indescribable book, but after all, Kakashi still had his master, advisor, and even ancestor. It wasn't his turn to educate the people of the Hokage clan. He touched Little Linger's head. He stopped Little Linger from continuing. Well, Little Linger will listen to Oniai-sen. Since Oni-san doesn't want Little Linger to say anything, Little Linger will go to the kitchen to help Oni-san. Little Linger also knew that what she said was a bit too much, so she pouted and ran to the kitchen. Seeing that Little Linger has gone to the kitchen, Nangongja also sat together with Kakashi in the living room. Casually, he poured a cup of tea for Kakashi. Wisps of smoke floated from the tea, and the fragrance of the tea spread in the living room. "Try it. This is the tea I brought back from the land of hot water. I heard that it is very famous in the ninja world. After drinking it for so long, there is not much left." Nangongja pushed the teacup and put it in front of Kakashi. Out of politeness, Kakashi wanted to take the teacup with both hands. But he suddenly found that the teacup connected to Nangongja's hand was very hot at the moment. It was as if he put his hand into the fire. Kakashi already understood that Nangongja wanted to deliberately test him, so he mobilized chakra. It was used to resist the internal force that Nangongja integrated into the teacup. However, after a strand of chakra was injected, it was like a mud dragon entering the sea, disappearing without a trace in an instant, without any effect at all. Kakashi also didn't believe it and poured more and more chakra into the cup. The amount of chakra was mobilized, and even the slightly dissipated chakra formed a thin layer of blue mist that shrouded Kakashi's body. As more and more chakra was injected, the hot tea in the cup began to boil again. Slowly, Kakashi seemed to feel that he couldn't do it. He withdrew his chakra, lowered his head, and looked at Nangongja, who was sitting opposite him with a depressed mood. "When you first entered the village, you and I were evenly matched. But I didn't expect that in just a few years, you have left me so far behind. Say, I lost." Looking at Kakashi, who bowed his head and admitted defeat, Nangongja's face didn't have the slightest trace of joy. Instead, there was a kind of heavy feeling. "I heard that you gave up kenjutsu and went to practice ninjutsu instead?" Nangongja didn't discuss the contest with Kakashi. Instead, he talked to Kakashi about some rumors in Woodleaf. "I have a reason to specialize in ninjutsu." Kakashi stretched out his hand and touched his forehead-covered eye. The other eye was filled with sadness. Naive. Nangongja listened to Kakashi's words, and in an instant, the anger in his heart was aroused. "I know how good your relationship with Obito was, and I also know how Obito felt when he gave his eye to you. I thought that after such a long time, you should have thought it through. But the result? You are still sinking deeper and deeper. Indeed, the Sharingan has many, many conveniences. But is the kenjutsu passed down by White Fang not powerful? You miss the friend who died in front of you. Then, what about White Fang-sen?" Nangongja said louder and louder, and in the end, he even stood up. His voice even alarmed the three girls who were cooking in the kitchen, but the three girls just hid behind the kitchen door and quietly looked at Nangongja, who was scolding Kakashi. Such an angry and emotional Nangongja. They haven't seen Nangongja for a long time. Even Little Linger's body trembled a little when she looked at him. Chapter 102. Kakashi looked at Nangongja, who was standing in front of him, who seemed to be really angry. For a while, he began to have some inexplicable emotions in his heart. "So what? What qualifications do you have to judge my choice?" Often quarrels are like this. When one person loses control of his emotions, it will lead to the other person's emotional explosion. After the two people finished their fierce words, they looked at each other. In silence, Nangongja finally opened his mouth to stop the two people from looking at each other. "No matter what, you have to remember. You don't only represent yourself, but also the entire Hatake family and your father's glory. You can give up swordsmanship, you can also give up a lot of things. However, you must remember that whatever you do, you must not let Senior White Fang's spirit in heaven feel ashamed." Nangongja looked at Kakashi's eyes and said very solemnly. Kakashi seemed to have calmed down a little at this moment and sat in his original position. "Obito is dead. Rin is also dead. Father is also dead. I don't even know where my master is now." Kakashi looked up at Nangongja, who was standing in front of him. His eyes were full of sadness. "Nangongjun, I am not as strong as you think. Sad news came one after another, bombarding my spirit. Every one of them. Every single one of my mental pillars collapsed just like that. What can I do to make myself better? Whether it was Obito or Rin, for Kakashi, it was self-evident that they were precious. And Watergate, after White Fang's death, for Kakashi, he was like a teacher and a father. Kakashi was a little smaller than Nangongjia. Although he had undergone a lot of harsh ninja training since he was a child, Kakashi was still a little younger than Nangongjia. But his will was not as strong as many people thought. In Nangongjia's view, Kakashi was now overly addicted to pain. If this continued, even if he didn't become a cripple, he would also do a lot of things that would make people close to him sad. Nangongjia didn't suddenly stand up and talk to Kakashi on a whim, but he really understood. Kakashi at this moment needed someone to help him vent these negative emotions, so Nangongjia decided to stand up and help Kakashi vent his emotions. Nangongjia walked to Kakashi's side and put his hand on Kakashi's shoulder. Under Nangongjia's control, a wisp of natural energy slowly flowed into Kakashi's body. After Nangongjia's body, natural energy became very gentle at this moment. After entering Kakashi's body, it began to play its role. It detected all kinds of hidden injuries in Kakashi's body, and it slowly healed. During this time, you must have pushed yourself a lot. After all, you mainly used Kenjutsu and Taijutsu to fight, and from a Taijutsu ninja to a Ninjutsu ninja, you must go through a series of training. In order to complete the transformation faster, you have also undergone a lot of harsh training. Nangongjia stretched out his other hand and turned Kakashi's head slightly, so that he could look directly at his eyes. Haste makes waste. When one day you really understand these things, but you find that your body has been tortured to the point that it can't bear the burden, will you regret it? In the future, when the cloning ninja Kakashi fought with people, he often used a few ninjutsu, and his whole body would be exhausted. He couldn't fight anymore, although this was not in line with the Sharingan and Hatake family's physique. But there is also a great possibility that it was because Kakashi was too hasty when he completed the ninjutsu transformation, damaging the foundation of his body, causing both his physical fitness and chakra to deteriorate. Nangongjia naturally didn't know what would happen in the future, but this kind of thing that destroyed his foundation on the surface. Nangongjia could still see that Yondaime and Jiraiya were not here now. The three generations were busy with various trivial things like cleaning up the wood leaf, and these things could only be handled by Nangongjia. Kakashi listened to Nangongjia's words and didn't know what to say. He just lowered his head and looked at the floor with a pair of dead fish eyes. Whenever you need help, I'll help you. Come to me. Nangongjia patted Kakashi's shoulder and walked away. He wanted to give Kakashi some space so that he could think clearly. He walked to the aisle between the door and the house, and a slight evening breeze was blowing. It also made Nangongjia's mind a little bit sober. Just when Nangongjia's mind was still a little empty, Nangongjia heard Yabuki's voice. Yabuki? When did you come? Sorry, I didn't notice. Just now, something was bothering me. At this moment, Yabuki was holding a pink-haired child in her arms, but her eyes kept looking at Kakashi, who was sitting in the living room in a daze. This child is... Nangongjia nodded. Yes, this child is White Fang Senpai's son, Hatake Kakashi. Yabuki touched Sakura, who seemed to have fallen asleep in her arms, and there was a little sadness in her eyes. But I pity this child, he has experienced so many things at such a young age. In the year when White Fang Senpai had an accident, this child had to bear a lot of pressure. I didn't understand in the past, but after becoming a mother, I began to understand more and more how difficult it is for a child to leave his parents. Yabuki was talking about Kakashi, but Nangongjia remembered that he still had a sister. Those years without parents, he and his sister's difficult survival experience was so clear. Did I say something wrong? Looking at Nangongjia's appearance, Yabuki also reacted. Whether it was Nangongjia or Nangongro, they were both orphans without parents. Did her words make Nangongjia's heart start to feel sad? But Nangongjia smiled. It's okay, Yabuki. It's been so long, I've already accepted it. Although some experiences weren't so beautiful, they were still a part of one's life. I can't forget it, but I'm not so restrained. Now, I just want to protect my sister and let her have a better life. Nangongja also reached out and touched the small life in Yabuki's arms. I only hope that these children will not experience so much helplessness and sadness like us. Yabuki also nodded. The boy standing in front of her had grown a lot over the years. Chapter 103. Speaking of which, was I going to make Sakura my apprentice? Nangongja looked at the little girl in Yachue's arms and wanted to change the topic to Yachue, who had a sad expression on her face. You still remember? But in fact, I don't want my child to become a ninja. After all, ninja is too dangerous a profession. Every day I am worried that my husband won't be able to come back in person. When he is on a mission, I often can't sleep well. I really don't want my child to be like her father, always fighting for her life. Yachue looked at Sakura in her arms, and Sakura seemed to feel her mother's gaze. Her closed eyes slowly opened at this moment. Just as she was about to open her mouth and cry twice, she saw her mother looking at her with a strange look. She was so young, but she stretched out her slightly weak little hand and gently placed it on her mother's face, as if she was comforting her mother. I know what you mean, Yabuki. After all, I also understand the sorrow of being a ninja. But although the war has calmed down now, maybe one day it will break out again. Our generation is still alive, and we can do our best to protect the next generation. But once we lose the ability to protect them, are we just going to watch them get bullied? Nangongja said such a cruel fact very seriously, and at the same time he also offered his own suggestion to Yachu. How about this? When Sakura is about the age, let her come to me, I will teach her some self-defense techniques. Then send her to a ninja school to learn some basic ninja knowledge. I will ask Roro to let Sakura be assigned to Kiba Hospital as much as possible. So you don't have to worry about her facing all kinds of dangers, and at the same time, she can have some ability to protect herself. How about it? Yachue looked at Nangongja, and at the same time, she carefully thought about Nangongja's suggestion. In fact, Yabuki also knew that it was impossible for her daughter not to become a ninja. Although her husband was usually submissive to her, when it came to the topic of ninjas, he would become extremely stubborn. Moreover, in order to survive in such a world, one must have some ability to protect oneself. Since Nangongja was willing to help him in this way, why not? However, Yachue still decided not to agree so quickly. She still had to seek her husband's approval, right? I'll think about it myself. Once I've made a decision, I'll inform you, Nangongjun. Nangongja also knew that this kind of matter related to his child naturally couldn't be decided so easily, so he didn't say anything. Yachue suddenly stretched out his hand and placed Sakura in front of Nangongja. Help me keep an eye on Sakura. I'll go help little sister Rower and little sister Mishiro make dinner. You men are all like this. You don't know how difficult it is to prepare 3 meals. Nangongja just wanted to explain that it wasn't that he didn't understand, but when he was pushed out of the kitchen. Yachue had already strode into the kitchen, and at the same time, there began to be faint whispers in the kitchen. Nangongja thought that it might be a private conversation between women and girls, so he didn't concentrate on what they were talking about. Instead, he lifted Xiaoying, who was in his arms, and looked at her carefully. Sakura also looked at the unfamiliar person in front of her. Some of her long hair was not tied up, but floating in front of her. A pair of eyebrows, different from the gentleness in her youth, slowly began to condense a kind of aggressive edge. Sakura, who was still a little vague, reached out her small hand again. She grabbed a strand of hair floating in front of Nangongja's forehead and pulled it, as if she wanted to see why this person's hair was so different from her own. It was so black. The young Sakura didn't have much strength, so she didn't hurt Nangongja. Instead, it made Nangongja feel that the child in front of him was very cute. You like to torment people at such a young age. When you grow up, I don't know how many people will be tormented by you. Although the words were not pleasant to hear, Nangongja still had a smile on his face. He directly sat in the courtyard's corridor and put Sakura on his lap. He slowly teased the child. Time passed just like that. Nangongja played with Sakura on his lap. The child's unique laughter echoed in the somewhat empty courtyard. It seemed that everything was infected by the child's laughter. A gentle breeze blew gently. Little birdie also kept showing off her singing voice. Suddenly, Nangongja felt that someone was standing next to him, so he turned his head and saw that his sister was already standing next to him. I thought that you were the kind of person who didn't like children. I didn't expect you to have so much fun with Sakura. Nangong pouted her small mouth and pointed at Sakura's forehead as if she was complaining, every time I carry this child, she will make a lot of noise. But in the end, she has so much fun with you. You're so young, but you already know the difference between a boy and a girl? Nangongja knew that his sister was deliberately teasing, but he still played along with his sister's words. Maybe that's true. After all, I'm quite handsome. Don't you think so, Sakura? As he spoke, Nangongja carried Sakura, who was sitting on his lap. And Sakura was very cooperative. As if answering Nangongja's question, she waved her small hands happily. Nangongja raised his eyebrows and looked at his sister standing next to him. It was as if he was saying, "See if I'm right." Nangong didn't care about Nangongja's teasing at the moment. She just silently sat next to Nangongja. When we were in the town, the blacksmith uncle passed away when Nine Tails attacked the village. I was the one who saved him and covered him with a white cloth. Nangongja had been wondering why Makoto Hataki from the Hataki family, who had helped him and his sister a lot, wasn't invited by Nangong. At this moment, Nangong told him the reason. Uncle? Life and death are fated. Since Uncle has passed away, then I'll find a day to give him a bouquet of flowers. It's a blessing to leave this world as soon as possible. I only hope that Uncle can be reincarnated in a more peaceful world. Chapter 104. Let's go. Since you're here, the food must be ready. Let's leave those unhappy things for later. Let's go eat first. Nangongja looked at Nangong, who was sitting next to him, and reached out his hand to scratch his sister's nose. This caused Nangong to be dissatisfied, but it also dispelled the heavy atmosphere from before. Mishiro and Little Linger also came out with a few small tables. On each table, there were some exquisite side dishes and rice. Mishiro also specially put a small pot of sake on Nangongja's table. I don't know what you learned during this period of seclusion, but you learned a lot about drinking. Mishiro put the table in front of Nangongja and rolled her eyes at Nangongja. Mishiro was the first person to know Nangongja after he came out of seclusion, so she naturally knew about Nangongja's drinking problem. Although she didn't like Nangongja drinking, she still prepared a small pot of sake for Nangongja. Brother Nangong, guess which dish was made by Little Linger? Little Linger just came out of the kitchen and saw Nangongja, so she clung to Nangongja. At this time, when she saw the dishes in front of Nangongja, she also wanted Nangongja to guess which dish was made by her. Little Linger's pair of small eyes stared at Nangongja, making him a little scared. Okay, let brother see. Nangongja looked at the side dishes on his table. There was a sori, stir-fried vegetables, miso soup, and a bowl of rice. None of them were particularly difficult to make. Nangongja really didn't know which one was made by Little Linger. So he pointed at the miso soup. This one? Nangongja looked at Little Linger, but Little Linger didn't seem to be in a good mood. After she snorted, she pouted, which made Nangongja feel a little embarrassed. Okay, brother is just teasing you. You made this stir-fried vegetables, right? Xiao Ling Air still had a look of indifference on her face. That little mouth of hers that was curled up even higher at this moment. If it wasn't the miso soup or stir-fried vegetables, then could it be that this sori was made by Little Linger? Nangongja could only quickly point at the sori and say, Little Linger, this should be made by you, right? However, Little Linger got even angrier. There were only these few dishes. In the end, her brother Nangong still didn't get it right. She reached out a pair of small hands, grabbed Nangongja's ears and pulled, Brother, you idiot! You can't even guess it? Nangongja was really helpless. There were only 3 dishes on the table. Didn't he already guess it? If even this was wrong, Nangongja felt helpless. Little Linger made the rice in front of you. It was Yachue who saw Nangongja being tortured by Little Linger, so she laughed and said. However, Nangongja didn't take the bait. Instead, he opened his mouth and said something that made little Linger even angrier. White rice is also considered a dish? Suddenly, everyone in the room burst into laughter. Even Sakura, who was in Yachue's arms, giggled at this moment. She even used her small hand to point at Nangongzhi and little Linger, who were playing tricks at this moment. Kakashi, who was originally in low spirits, lowered his head to finish the food in front of him. At this moment, he also spat out a mouthful of miso soup that he just drank. Seeing everyone laughing, little Linger felt a little embarrassed. She could only reach out her hand and hit Nangongzhi's head. Then she ran to her seat and began to finish the food in front of her. On the other hand, Nangongzhi was still looking at everyone with a dumbfounded expression. It was as if his brain hadn't turned yet, which made people laugh. The dinner passed in a happy atmosphere like this. After saying goodbye to Yachue and Kakashi, Nangongzhi finally sat in the living room and picked up a miscellaneous book to read. Nangongro and Mishiro also sat next to Nangongzhi after packing up. As for little Linger? At this moment, she didn't have the sulky look from before at all. She happily read the manga published by Woodleaf. In these manga, they are all adapted from some of the well-known ninjas of Konoha, which is also a kind of ideological education, right? Brother Nangong, are all ninjas so powerful? Little Linger held her manga book at this time and went in front of Nangongzhi. After grabbing the miscellaneous books in Nangongzhi's hands, she threw them to the ground. Then she extended the manga in her hand in front of Nangongzhi. Her small hand even pointed at the figure of a ninja who was showing off his might in the manga. Nangongzhi looked at it carefully. The ninja above seemed to be the founder of Woodleaf, Senju Takuma. The person you are talking about is the first Hokage of Woodleaf, known as the god of ninjutsu, Senju Takuma. Naturally, he is very powerful. At that time, the nine-tailed beasts that wantonly destroyed the ninja world were subdued by Hashirama-sama one by one and distributed to the major ninja villages to balance the strength of all parties. It also allowed the shinobi world to go from the warring states period to the current 5 countries era. When Nangongzhi explained Senju Takuma to little Linger, he also explained the history of the ninja world to little Linger. The more little Linger listened, the more she didn't understand, and her pair of small eyes began to shine more and more. Can I also be a ninja? Nangongzhi never thought that little Linger would ask him such a question. After all, in Nangongzhi's consciousness, the little girl standing in front of him was still a very young girl. Since he can protect her well, why should he let her do such a dangerous job? However, Nangongzhi remembered what he just said to Yabuki. This era is a chaotic time. Since he will grow old one day, then he must make all kinds of preparations for everyone close to him. Since little Linger is not resistant to becoming a ninja, then why not give little Linger a chance to choose for herself? You can, but you are already past the age of Kiba Ninja School's enrollment. If you want to go to a ninja school, you may need to study well, and then you can go to a grade suitable for your age. Nangongzhi considered that little Linger's age is close to 10 years old. For a ninja school that is often 6 or 7 years old, it is too old. So, Oni-san will train you well. If you can't hold on, then don't go to a ninja school. Oni-san doesn't want you to be a ninja, but can only mix in the position of a genin. Do you understand? Chapter 105. Knock knock. There was a clear knock on the door. Nangongzhi was standing in front of a room. This is the residence of Yandame Hokage, and also the residence of Shinakushina and her son Naruto. Who is it? A familiar voice sounded from behind the door, and the door slowly opened a crack. Sinai Q, it's me, Nangongzhi. Nangongzhi poked his head out of the door and looked at Shinakushina inside. Nangongzhi, I'm sorry. The house is a bit messy. I don't know why you are here. He didn't know why, but at this moment, Shinakushina looked full of vigilance, and her eyes were full of fatigue. I recently asked for a long leave from the 3 generations, and during this time, the 3 generations asked me to take care of you and Naruto Komatsu. Nangongzhi tried to make the smile on his face softer, and Shinakushina seemed to realize that it was inappropriate to let Nangongzhi stand at the door, so she opened the door wider and let Nangongja enter the room to talk. Nangongja walked into the door and saw the inside of the house. The floor was full of debris, and obviously it hasn't been cleaned up for a long time. I'm sorry, I'm a bit tired these days. I didn't tidy up the house properly, I'm sorry. Xianxia seemed to feel that she didn't tidy up the house properly, and it was a bit disrespectful to Nangongja. So she quickly explained. It seems that after Yandame left, your life wasn't so good? Nangongja guessed, and Xianxia could only pull the hair on her forehead with her hand and sighed heavily. Since Watergate left Woodleaf, there have been many people hiding in the dark, trying to investigate the situation of Naruto and me. Although I have some strength, I'm still worried that Naruto will be affected by these people. These days, the 3 generations sent us some necessities and food. Nangongja also knew that Xianxia's situation wasn't good. It's only been half a year since the Nine Tails attacked the village, and as the former Nine Tails column force, Xianxia, although her identity is confidential, as long as one is interested, one can always find clues. What's more, Yandame sealed the Nine Tails in the body of a newborn in front of everyone, and it's not difficult to associate it with Yandame's newborn child. What's more, Naruto is a person with the Uzumaki clan's physique, which makes people think that the new Nine Tails column force is Naruto's head. For the major ninja villages, tailed beasts are a strategic weapon. As long as they can figure out the situation of Woodleaf's tailed beasts, any sacrifice is worth it. Even if the 3 generations sent a large number of direct umbu to be responsible for the safety of Xianxia and Naruto, it's still not enough. In the end, it's still a drop in the bucket. Even if many spies of hostile forces are eliminated every day, there are still some powerful spies that the umbu can't guard against. This is also one of the reasons why the 3 generations wanted Nangongja to protect Xianxia and her son. I know, Xianxia, if you don't mind, I will take care of you. I can take you and Naruto Komatsu to my place and protect you. 3 generations will arrange a stand-in here to continue to confuse some people with ulterior motives. Although column force is of great importance, as long as this period of time is over. Other ninja villages won't have so much energy to invest a lot of manpower and material resources to spy on you. Nangongja talked about the solution he discussed with the 3 generations earlier and wanted to ask for Xianxia's opinion. Although the major ninja villages have some speculations about the identity of the Nine Tails column force, such behavior of constantly burying their own spies is unacceptable to the major ninja villages. As long as this storm passed, there wouldn't be such high-intensity snooping behavior anymore. Xianxia also understood this, so she nodded, indicating that she has no objection. What's the exact time? Nangongja thought for a while and then said, if possible, now is the best time. I have already greeted the umbu outside, and the stand-in is also ready. I will temporarily place you and Naruto Komatsu in the different space where my summon beast lives, and I will let you come back when you arrive at my house. Okay, then I will go and pack some necessary things. Then I will take Naruto Komatsu with you. Xianxia nodded and went to Naruto's room on the 2nd floor of her house. She looked at Naruto, who was still wrapped in swaddling clothes and sleeping soundly. After touching Naruto's head, she turned around and packed her luggage. Nangongja also followed Xianxia and saw Yandame-sama's child Naruto. I heard from the 3 generations that Yandame-sama hopes that Naruto can take Xianxia's surname Uzumaki. I think he also hopes that those hostile forces will shift their attention away from Naruto, right? Xianxia, who was packing, also trembled at this moment. In order to protect Naruto, Watergate has also worked very hard. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to find out who was spying on Nine Tails, and even released Nine Tails at that time, Watergate wouldn't have left Woodleaf Village like this. Even the news is intermittent, Xianxia said, but a slight sobbing sound came out. During this time, not only the safety of herself and her child was not guaranteed, even her husband was alone outside, which really made Xianxia's heart accumulated too much pressure. Nangongja put his hand on Xianxia's shoulder. He hoped that he could give Xianxia some comfort. You and I both know the strength of Yandame-sama. There may be some people in the entire ninja world who can defeat Yandame-sama, But no one can really kill Yandame-sama. And you and Naruto, after this period of time, will also return to normal. I also hope that Sinai-Q can take good care of yourself and the young Naruto Komatsu. When Yandame-sama returns to the village, he can see a healthy and happy wife and a healthy child, right? Although Nangongja knew that what he was saying now was just his opinion, Nangongja knew that it was only his opinion. But if it can make Shina Kushina's heart can be a little relieved, it's worth it. Don't worry. Shina Kushina stopped the movement of her hand and turned to look at Nangongja standing behind her. After wiping the little tears from the corner of her eyes with her hand, she showed a strong smile. I am Yandame-sama's wife, and I am also a qualified ninja. As long as there is hope in the future, I will never give up easily. Even if the future is dark, I believe that Watergate will find a bright path with me. Chapter 106. Come on. Nangongja looked at the girl in front of him who had become bruised, and still looked at him with a pair of cold eyes. This girl was Little Linger, the one who told Nangongja that she wanted to become a ninja and enter the ninja school. In order to let Little Linger keep up with the learning progress of the ninja school, Nangongja let Nangong-ro teach Little Linger some basic ninja knowledge, and he taught Little Linger taijutsu. Although most ninjas rely on a variety of strange or powerful ninjutsu and genjutsu to attack. But most of the time, in order to save chakra in their body. If they can use taijutsu to solve the problem, they will focus on taijutsu. A ninja who is very good at taijutsu is not necessarily a top ninja, but a top ninja must be a ninja with strong taijutsu. Little Linger wiped her face with her hand, hoping to reduce the dust on her face. But the dirt on her hand made her white and tender face even dirtier. Little Linger didn't protest. From childhood to adulthood, whether it was with her grandfather, Nangongja, or Mashiro, she went to Kagekure. Little Linger was basically protected by the people around her. Although it was a bit exaggerated to say that she didn't do any chores, but it was not far off. Since Nangongja trained her in this way, Little Linger didn't know how many bruises on her body, and how many tears she secretly shed. But Nangongja didn't reduce his strength. Instead, when he found that Little Linger could accept this level of strength, he increased his strength by a bit. Every day, Ling would suffer all kinds of injuries of varying degrees. Fortunately, Nangong-ro was a qualified medical ninja, and Nangongja was also very measured. So basically, after a night Little Linger will recover. Then she will suffer the next day's torture. Ha! Little Linger made a soft roar, and her whole body rushed toward Nangongja. She even pulled out a kunai from behind her back with her small hands. This was Nangongja's requirement for Little Linger. She can use any weapon, she can use any means. As long as she can leave a little injury on her body, she won't have to go through this kind of training. Directly to the ninja school. Nangongja will only use taijutsu to fight, and he won't even use internal strength or weapons. But Mashiro, Nangong-ro, and even Shina Kushina felt that Nangongja deliberately didn't want Little Linger to go to the ninja school. After all, although Nangongja hasn't reached the level of a Kage, he is only one step away. Moreover, Nangongja is good at swordsmanship, and his taijutsu is naturally very strong. To let a little girl who hasn't trained for a long time attack Nangongja, and even leave a wound on Nangongja's body. It is simply too difficult a challenge. But Nangongja insisted that Little Linger must be trained like this, and the girls had no way to stop Nangongja. Yabuki, who occasionally came here, saw Nangongja's training method, and from time to time, she muttered in her heart whether to let her daughter come to Nangongja to learn. After all, Nangongja didn't go easy on Little Linger, and for her daughter, Yabuki was very distressed. How could she be willing to let Nangongja train like this? After this period of training, Little Linger's speed, strength, flexibility, and other aspects have improved greatly. Soon, she arrived in front of Nangongja. Obviously, she was holding a kunai in one hand, but she still used a skillful fist technique to practice with Nangongja. Not bad. This set of fist technique was originally summarized by me for Ro, but Ro doesn't like boxing, so it has been idle. I thought that you might be very suitable for this set of fist technique, so I taught it to you. I didn't expect that in such a short time, you have already learned 3 of it. Both of their fists and feet were clearly clashing, but Nangongzhi looked like he was handling a butcher's cleaver with ease. He even leisurely to the point where he started to evaluate Little Linger's fist technique. Little Linger is a very proud person. Such behavior is no different from the highest degree of provocation. What's more, these words were said by her favorite brother Nangong, which made Little Linger's heart more angry. She didn't speak, but instead, the fist in her hand became sharper. She had to answer everything Nangongzhi said with every blow. Nangongzhi also secretly nodded. A person is not afraid of their own negative emotions. What is afraid is that a person will be affected by their own emotions and be implicated. Whether it is anger or injustice, the right way to vent it can increase a person's combat power. The 2 of them have exchanged dozens of blows, and slowly, Little Linger fell into a disadvantage. After all, Little Linger is still very young, and her physical fitness has not really reached the point where it can be compared to an adult. The speed and strength of the punches kept decreasing, and the fist technique began to become a little messy. Soon after, a huge flaw appeared in Ling Er's defense. Her left abdomen did not defend against Nangongzhi's attack, and Nangongzhi's palm hit her left abdomen. She instantly lost her balance and fell back. But Nangongzhi has no intention of stopping. He stretched out one hand and grabbed Little Linger's arm, and the other hand supported Little Linger's waist. He threw Little Linger in his hand to the ground behind him. This time is still considered. Nangongzhi knew that Little Linger has no more strength to fight, so he withdrew his strength. He was ready to teach Little Linger a good lesson, so that she can understand the strengths and weaknesses of this training. But before he finished his sentence, a kunai flew towards Nangongzhi's face. But the kunai's flight path was too simple for Nangongzhi, so Nangongzhi easily caught the kunai in his hand. This move is not bad. Nangongzhi looked at the kunai in his hand, and even fiddled with it a few times. However, the unresigned Ling Ling, who was sitting opposite him, had a strange smirk on her face. "Brother Nangong, there is something even better." Just as Little Linger spoke, Nangongzhi found a shallow wound on his ankle, and a very thin shuriken was inserted into the tree trunk behind him. "I've never intended to defeat you in a direct confrontation, big brother. All you ask of me is to leave a wound on your body. No matter how shallow, no matter how small it is, it's fine." Little Linger's face showed a bright smile. It was obvious that Ling Er did not completely exhaust her stamina during the face-to-face training. Instead, she had left a little bit of it. After Nangongzhi relaxed a little, Little Linger threw a kunai at Nangongzhi's face. She distracted Nangongzhi, and at the same time, her other hand secretly grabbed the specially made shuriken and threw it towards Nangongzhi's ankle. Because the wound was very small, Nangongzhi only paid attention to Little Linger and did not feel anything. Nangongzhi suddenly felt that he had been through a lot, and now he suddenly capsized in front of Little Linger. He felt very uncomfortable. His bitter face naturally made the few girls watching from the side clap and cheer. Chapter 107. It seems that you have miscalculated. You didn't really intend to let Linger go to the ninja school to study, but you were tricked by Little Linger. This time you have to fulfill your promise. Mishiro walked to Nangongzhi's side and put her little hand on Nangongzhi's shoulder. She said half-jokingly. But Nangongzhi shook his head and looked at Mishiro beside him. He said with a smile, "Do you think Little Ling can really hide from me so easily?" After saying that, he left without looking back, leaving Mishiro standing there in a daze. Indeed, Little Linger left a shallow wound on Nangongzhi's body with a sneak attack. Naturally, it was extremely delicate. Fortunately, Little Linger was quick-witted enough to think of such a trick. However, Nangongzhi wasn't just a theoretical ninja who worked behind closed doors. He was a real fierce man who killed his way out of the battlefield with his sword and spear. On the battlefield, both sides would attack and defend, and all kinds of dirty tricks would emerge one after another. How could Nangongzhi fall for such a shallow trap? Mishiro thought for a moment and looked at Nangongzhi, who had walked a little further away. For a moment, she felt that the boy she had known for a long time became more and more thoughtful. Then she thought about herself and couldn't help but shake her head. Everything in the world is like this. If you don't let others down, you let yourself down. In the end, it's just another sad person in the world. At this moment, Nan Gongzhe was mumbling something that made people scratch their heads. It seems like it's time to find something to do. In fact, if an ordinary person wanted to enter the ninja school, they would have to go through all kinds of strict selections. Only those who had a certain amount of aptitude to become a ninja could enter the ninja school. Especially for transfer students like Little Linger, the requirements were naturally stricter. But with an elite jonin like Nan Gongzhe as a guarantor, all the problems were easily solved. In order for Little Linger to have an official wood-leaf household register, Nan Gongzhe also added Little Linger to his household register, using the name Nan Gongling to register. Little Linger didn't object. Instead, she was happy after hearing the news. She leaned on Nan Gongzhe's face and kissed him fiercely. Nan Gong Ro and Zhen Bai, who were watching from the side, were slightly jealous. In the blink of an eye, Little Linger had been studying in the ninja school for almost a week. Little Linger thought that everyone in the ninja school should be a qualified ninja. At least, they wouldn't be inferior to her after being trained by Nan Gongzhe. As a result, Little Linger quickly discovered the truth of the matter. Looking around at his class, there were 7 or 8 students lying on their desks and sleeping soundly. There were also many people who secretly put some magazines under the textbook, holding back the smile on their face with a serious face. There was even a more outrageous one who put a makeup box on the table in front of her. Unhurriedly, she held a variety of brushes and applied a variety of powders, creams, and makeup to her face to her heart's content. If it weren't for the fact that I'm a student here, I wouldn't have believed anyone who told me that the students of the Ninja Academy are lazy. On the podium, a teacher with thick glasses that looked like the bottom of a glass bottle was drawing various complicated and trivial physics problems on the blackboard with great concentration. Not only did he not care that his students were busy with their own trivial matters at the moment, but he seemed to be completely immersed in the knowledge he was teaching. A variety of formulas sprayed out of the teacher's mouth like bullets. Even Xiaoling felt an irresistible drowsiness welling up in her heart at this moment. Sure enough, every outstanding physics teacher is the world's top hypnotist. The ancients didn't lie to me. Dang, 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 the melodious bell rang throughout the campus. Like a huge palm suddenly grabbed the mouth of a glass bottle, the teacher immediately turned around, picked up the thick brick-like book on the podium and walked out of the classroom. The students in the classroom at the moment were like seriously ill people who were injected with a cardiac stimulant, and they instantly became excited. The sound of sobbing could only be heard in fear that it would not be able to break through the clouds. Even the birds that were originally perched on the trees in the campus were frightened and flew high. Have you heard? A new mouse came to the school to teach us combat lessons. A girl who was wearing makeup just now turned around and looked at her friend who was sitting next to her. She was clearly very young, but she dressed herself up extremely coquettishly and talked about the small gossip in the school. The coquettish girl listened to the makeup girl's words, and her face was instantly filled with disdain. Forget it, the person who teaches in the ninja school. If it's not a serious injury on the battlefield that can't continue to be a ninja, then it's those who are not good at fighting. Teaching us combat lessons? I don't know what kind of idiot it is. But the makeup girl shook her head at the moment, trying to deny the rumors girl's words. Yuri Koyuri, you don't know. This teacher is super handsome. Someone seemed to have seen this teacher at the teaching office, and it seems that this teacher is a jonin. He just took a long leave to stay in Woodleaf, hoping to spend more time with his family. After the principal heard about it, he even begged the 3 generations, and this teacher reluctantly agreed. Doesn't he come to school every day, only when he's willing to occasionally teach us a lesson or two? The coquettish girl, Yuri Koyuri, also seemed to be a little energetic at this moment, and her face was filled with expectation. Jonin? It's not that I haven't seen one before, but it's really the first time I saw a jonin teaching in the ninja school. I don't know what kind of person he is, even the 3 generations can't invite him. The makeup girl also shook her head, and then said, I don't know, even if it's Yuri Koyuri, your Uchiha family doesn't have such a character. Yuri Koyuri is actually a member of the Uchiha family. His hair that has always been loose was blown by the wind outside the window, revealing Yuri Koyuri's Uchiha family tattoo printed on his clothes. After listening to the makeup girl's words, Yuri Koyuri suddenly seemed to be angry. A pair of narrow phoenix eyes stared at the girl who has a good relationship with him, and said with a serious and oppressive tone, "Some words can't be said casually. Our Uchiha family, is it something a small family like yours can casually comment on?" The girl looked at Yuri Koyuri beside her in a daze, and suddenly felt that this person and the Yuri Koyuri she knows are not the same person at all. Even her body was trembling with fear. As for little Linger? Naturally, she has no interest in the feelings between these two girls, but the content of their conversation, little Linger faintly guessed. Chapter 108. Not long after, it was the turn of little Linger's class to go to the actual combat class. The actual combat class was often held in the open space of the ninja school, and little Linger's class was no exception. At this moment, the youngsters were also extremely excited. Perhaps a new and powerful teacher would be a rare and interesting topic for the children? Although the little ones didn't do anything serious during the theory class, every time during the actual combat class, they would give 120% of their energy. For a ninja, you cannot do well in the exam, you cannot do well in theory, but if your actual combat is bad, then it's really shameful. The actual combat class of the ninja school generally doesn't involve ninjutsu. After all, how much chakra can a group of children who are still in the ninja school? It's just a few low-level D-class ninjutsu, and it's enough to drain their chakra. The future ninjas also stood in line at the moment. Of course, there were all kinds of voices. It was so noisy that people's ears were buzzing. Dang, dang, dang. When the bell rang, the little ones lowered their voices a little. At the same time, a person wearing a white bamboo hat with the word, "Fire," written on it appeared in front of everyone in a cloud of smoke. Although the little people were lawless, when they saw the leader of the Woodleaf village, the 3 generations Hokage still respectfully shouted together, "Greetings, 3 generations Hokage." In fact, the little people also knew that the 3 generations Hokage had to go to such a place. After all, a jonin who can be regarded as a high-end combat power in the Woodleaf village came to teach in the ninja school, and it was worthy of the attention of the Hokage. The appearance of the Hokage was also a kind of respect for Nangongjia. Seeing a group of little people respectfully saluting at the moment, the 3 generations Hokage couldn't help but have a lot of smiles on his face. These days he has dealt with a lot of troublesome things, whether it's light or dark. Indeed, he was a little tired. After all, he was old, and this kind of intrigue really made him a little weak. This time, coming to the Ninja Academy to meet and chat with this group of little people is also a rare opportunity for the 3 generations to relax. Thus, he extended his hands and gestured downwards as a response to the group of little people's greetings. "I think the elders in your family have already informed you that today is the first time the ninja school will have an elite jonin class." This was a creative step for Woodleaf. Every child was the future hope of Woodleaf Village. "You are far more important than an old man like me. We will also slowly give more and more excellent resources to Kiba Ninja School and Woodleaf Ninja Hospital. Not only will those who have contributed to the Woodleaf Academy and can no longer go to the battlefield teach in the Woodleaf Academy, but more and more fresh and powerful ninjas will come to Kiba Ninja School to teach you. I believe that in the long run, Konoha will become stronger and stronger, and the tree of Konoha will grow even stronger. This is not only the responsibility of our group of adults, but also the common goal of every child who attends Konoha's Ninja Academy." Looking at the 3 generations Hokage standing on the short podium, the little people below were also sleepy. On the contrary, a group of newspaper and magazine reporters who heard that the 3 generations Hokage was going to speak at the Ninja Academy were standing below at the moment, taking notes and taking photos. There is no way. The speech of a person in a high position has a symbolic meaning for everyone. It's not a dispensable speech, not to mention that the Sandaime-sama's goal of supporting Konoha's Ninja Academy and Konoha's Ninja Hospital is indeed a great thing. If it is really implemented, it will also let every ninja family living in Woodleaf enjoy a lot of practical benefits. It is very conducive to stabilizing the situation in Woodleaf, so that the originally turbulent lake will once again return to its original calm. So, we believe this pioneering effort would definitely allow every child to receive the best education. Let every villager get a practical benefit. We will continue to persist. Thank you. The 3 generations finally finished the long speech and bowed to the audience below. Naturally, everyone warmly applauded. The group of young children also lost their sleepiness when they heard the excited applause from the teachers and reporters next to them. At the same time, they also didn't know why the 3 generations Hokage enthusiastically applauded with this group of people. Although they didn't understand what the 3 generations Hokage said for a long time, they didn't say a word about the new teacher. The 3 generations also slowly walked down the stage in this noisy applause. A young man came over to greet the 3 generations Hokage. The 3 generations Hokage shook hands for a while and walked to the stage. Everyone standing below the stage was observing the young man who had just stepped onto the stage. A slightly long hair was casually tied behind the young man's head. A few strands of hair were playfully not tied up, but hanging in front of the forehead, from time to time swayed by the wind. The young man's face was a little thin, but it didn't look weak at all. Instead, it was like a knife. There was a particularly cold feeling emitting from it. And the most embodiment of the young man's temperament that no one can ignore is naturally the young man's pair of eyes. Under the contrast of the sword-like eyebrows, a pair of dark eyes were so obvious. Everyone who was looked at by the young man would subconsciously feel something invading their bodies. An inexplicable chill rose from the bottom of their hearts, causing goosebumps to rise all over their bodies. The tall and thin body stood there. The black robe was blown by the wind from time to time, revealing the bright red lining. On the left arm was a somewhat hollowed-out full-arm armor that has become a little black. In some places that are difficult to wash, some scarlet residue can be seen faintly. On the back of the young man, there was a black sword. Although it was swallowed by the scabbard, a wisp of cold air was emitted from the long sword from time to time. I am Xianxia, Woodleaf Elite Jonin. In the 3 World Wars, I participated in the Sand War, Kumo Shinobu War, and the Mist War. Completed 23 D-level missions, 56 C-level missions, 64 B-level missions, 132 A-level missions, 13 S-level missions, 7 SS-level missions, and 4 SSS-level missions. When I was in the Sand War, I was called Yama by the Sand Ninjas, and since then I have such a nickname. This time, at the invitation of the 3 generations Hokage, I am temporarily guiding the students of the ninja school. That's all. After that, Xianxia bowed and walked down the stage. Little Ling, who was standing below, couldn't help but have a pair of sparkling eyes. Such a person is her family, her brother Xianxia. Some other reporters and ninjas heard Xianxia's amazing record and couldn't help but slightly look sideways. This time, is the 3 generations Hokage showing their muscles in disguise? Although the 3 generations Hokage left, there are still such people who listen to the orders of the 3 generations Hokage. Some people who had ulterior motives couldn't help but retract their thoughts. Chapter 109. After all, this is just an introduction meeting for the new teachers of the ninja school. Although Xianxia's amazing resume has indeed dazzled a group of people, in the end, the most important role is still the 3 generations Hokage as the leader of the Woodleaf village. When the 3 generations Hokage left, the bustling crowd became sparse. In addition to the students and teachers who came out of the ninja school, all the unrelated personnel were quickly asked to leave the ninja school. A group of children below is also talking about the 3 generations Hokage and their young but extraordinarily powerful teacher. Hey sensei, do you like a girl? It has to be said that the children of Woodleaf Village are precocious. In just a short time, many people have already crowded around Xianxia and asked a variety of questions. Some of the bolder ones have begun to ask a lot of private questions. On the other hand, Xianxia only smiled embarrassedly before he exerted force with his feet and left the dangerous area surrounded by a group of people. He clapped his hands, indicating that his future students can be quiet. Well, we will have a lot of time to continue to get along. There are some private topics, we can talk about it slowly after class. Now we are mainly going to start our actual combat teaching. Seeing that the teacher has spoken, the students below can't say anything more. They just responded in unison, and then began to form 4 neat groups, waiting for their teacher to teach. Very good, everyone can be quiet so quickly, it's not bad. I also have a general understanding of the learning progress and learning attitude of the students. Nangongzhi nodded, but halfway through his words, he raised his head and glanced at the faces of the children standing in front of him with his eyes. I have to say, you really let me down a little. Nangongzhi's words set off an uproar in the hearts of the students. Every child who has the qualifications to become a ninja and has been persisting in the ninja school until such a high grade, even if they don't say it, they still have some pride in their hearts. After all, a ninja is a completely different class from ordinary people. It can be said that the difference between a ninja and an ordinary person is like the difference between clouds and mud. Even if you are a poor ninja, you will be more noble than the richest ordinary person in the world. This is the status that strength brings to a ninja. You can deny a ninja's character, you can also despise a ninja's appearance. But you can never ignore the power level of a ninja. Genin who graduated after a year will learn at least 5 D-class ninjutsu under the guidance of their instructors, and even C-class or B-class ninjutsu. Such a genin can at least wipe out a village of hundreds of people through assassination and other means. Teacher, how can you say that? All of us have worked hard to train ourselves, and we are all very capable. You haven't properly tested our actual combat performance, and you said such a thing. Don't you think it's beneath your status as a teacher? Some of the students have begun to talk about it, and a lot of harsh words were passed to Nangongzhi's ears. Nangongzhi looked at the group of children who were defending themselves, and his face hung a bit of a smile. Others don't know Nangongzhi, but how can little Linger not know Nangongzhi? This kind of smile was not a kind smile. Every time Nangongzhi ruthlessly trained himself, such a smile never disappeared from his face. Sure enough, Nangongzhi quietly looked at the group of children who were talking about it. He didn't have any intention to interrupt. And this approach made the group of ninjas on the opposite side more energetic. All kinds of words became more and more unpleasant to hear. There are even a lot of people who have begun to criticize Nangongzhi for fabricating his own mission resume. People are often like this. When they meet an existence that far surpasses them in all aspects, they will subconsciously devalue their own existence. Subconsciously, he began to belittle the other party's existence in his own consciousness. Perhaps this was the only way to give himself some psychological comfort and reduce the gap in his heart. If the one who is being belittled doesn't fight back, then it is simply wonderful. It was like pouring a bottle of turpentine on a bonfire. Ordinary things couldn't even extinguish the flames of envy and jealousy in his heart. And what is Nangongzhi's choice? A strong momentum swept through the entire combat activity area in an instant, as if a storm suddenly hit the land. Countless leaves, petals, and dust were stirred up. It even alarmed some of the students who were in class closer to here, and they opened the classroom window to look here. The group of children standing opposite Nangongzhi, at this moment, the hair on their bodies stood up, and they didn't even dare to move. They all had a strange feeling at the same time, as if a blade was placed on their necks. A kind of coldness from the bottom of their hearts instantly swept through their whole body. You are talking so happily because you want to refute my point of view? Nangongzhi clearly stimulated such a strong momentum, but at this moment he still looked relaxed. He didn't have the slightest sense of authority that relied on his aura to suppress others. But the more he was like this, the more the group of children below were frightened. Such a person really made one's hair stand on end. Let's not talk about other times for the time being. In the end, how many of you are in class except for the actual combat class? I have quietly observed you. When you are in class, except for studying, you really do everything. With this kind of attitude, you want to be a ninja who can take charge of everything on their own? Even if you go back and practice for 20,000 years, I don't know if you can guarantee that you can come back with your body intact after going to the battlefield. Nangongzhi's disdain was felt by everyone present. Naturally, There will be some people who will face Nangong's momentum and began to defend themselves. Since are ninjas. Everything depends on actual combat, since Sensei thinks that we are not good enough. Then why don't you do a good test, instead of blindly speculating about us? Nangongja didn't expect that there would be someone in this group of children who can speak against his momentum. At the beginning, the person who spoke was still intermittent, but slowly, the words became more and more fluent. Who are you? I am a bit interested in you. Nangongja looked at the girl who could speak against his momentum and said, I am Yuri Koyuri, Uchiha Yuri Koyuri. Chapter 110. Yuri Koyuri? Indeed, the best way to measure a ninja is to look at his actual combat ability. However, actual combat ability is also a comprehensive product of various abilities, isn't it? Ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu are the best embodiment of a ninja's chakra, physical fitness, and spiritual power. But these three are all painstaking efforts, and only by really spending a lot of time can these things be improved. And everyone's aptitude is different, and there is an upper limit. After reaching the upper limit, what kind of method can be used to improve oneself? I don't know if Yuri Koyuri has considered this. Nangongja said, and also put away his momentum. Many students sat on the ground after losing the pressure of momentum for a moment. Only a few people could barely stand, including Uchiha Yuri Koyuri and Little Linger. Yuri Koyuri also seemed to be asked by Nangongja's question, and instead of taking advantage of this precious time to rest, he seriously thought about it. There are also many students who heard Nangongja's question and carefully thought about it. These questions have not been thought about by these children, and even many parents who only have chunin or ordinary jonin in their families have not thought about it. After all, many ordinary jonins have not reached their upper limit in terms of physical strength, spiritual power, and chakra. And the gap between jonin and kage level is just like this. There is no doubt that some people with good aptitude and talent will learn more ninjutsu and have more chakra, and even many jonins have more chakra than some veteran kage level jonins. But there is a qualitative gap between kage level and jonin level, and as long as a kage level is given enough space and environment, ordinary jonins will not have a good result no matter how many of them come. The reason is that kage level not only increases their physical strength, spiritual power, and chakra to the upper limit, and they also sum up all kinds of combat experience and explore the most suitable combat method for themselves and achieve the best effect with the least cost. This is easy to say, but it is actually very difficult to do. Because a jonin, whether it's ninjutsu or taijutsu, has an astronomical amount of reserves. But in a real battle, can you use the most suitable method in a fleeting opportunity? Not to mention others, at least Nangongja can't guarantee that he can fight without making mistakes. After thinking for a long time, Yuri Koyuri said hesitantly, Sensei, you should be referring to experience? That's right. Isn't a reasonable distribution of combat method that can only be done after accumulating a large amount of experience? Nangongja nodded. Sure enough, you are very talented. Yes, the limit of limit, the limit of the brain limit, the limit's limit, the limit of the limit. Is the limit to two's limit, the limit's two's. To be honest, this is also the fundamental reason why when it comes to high-end combat power, except for very special circumstances, some basic and simple ninjutsu can be used to win. At this moment, all the students below also lowered their heads and fell into deep thought, because no one had said these words to them before. Although these words are simple, it is nothing more than pointing out the future path for this group of children. I said that you are disqualified as a ninja. Why is that? Because the easiest experience to learn is the truth in the textbooks in your hands. This is a lesson that countless seniors have written for you, a lesson that has been summarized through countless bloody experiences. But how many of you have really attended these classes and listened to the painstaking efforts of many seniors? How can you not be disqualified? The children lowered their heads, and their eyes were a little confused. They began to slowly reflect on their own actions. Nangongja didn't rush them to start the class. because it is more important to understand the truth than the previous class. Since he came here to be a teacher for these children, in Nangong's heart, these children can be regarded as half of his disciples. The most important thing to teach a person is not to teach him skills, but to teach him how to deal with things. The time passed in the meditation of the crowd, different from the days in other classes, this time they are really thinking seriously. Every person who has the opportunity to become a ninja will never be a stupid person who doesn't know how to be reasonable. Dang dang dang, the class is not long, it will be over soon, right? The children also came back to their senses under the urging of the bell, and struggled out of their meditation. Well, if there is anything you want to think about it slowly. No matter what the problem is, you can go to the teacher's office to find the teacher. If you can't find the teacher, ask Nangong Ling. Go to the teacher's house to find the teacher. Yuri Koyuri. Nangongja said, and by the way, he called the little girl who dared to refute his pressure. Yes, teacher. Obviously, Nangongja's words have slightly convinced the little girl. After Yuri Koyuri bowed slightly, she looked up at her teacher. There is a touch of respect in her eyes that can't be ignored. You will be the class representative of the combat class in the future. I will look for you if there is anything. Nangongja thought about it. This girl is still a moldable talent, so he gave the position of the class representative to this little girl. Yes, thank you, teacher. Yuri Koyuri responded and turned away. Nangongja looked at his group of students, shook his head slightly and disappeared. No one knows where he went. Nangong Ling. Yuri Koyuri suddenly walked to Little Linger and called Little Linger. Oh, what is it, Uchiha? Little Linger didn't quite understand what Yuri Koyuri wanted to do, but she still responded out of politeness. In fact, Little Linger admired this girl who dared to talk back to her brother Nangong. After all, Nangongja's aura was too terrifying. Even Little Linger, who was so close to Nangongja, was faintly afraid. Teacher Nangong, and you are? Yuri Koyuri asked. This is normal. After all, Nangong is not a very popular surname. It can even be said to be a rare surname in Woodleaf. In addition, before Nangongja left, he specifically mentioned Little Linger's name. Doesn't this show that Nangong Ling and I are very close? Brother Nangong is my sworn brother. I also live in Brother Nangong's house. Anyway, it wasn't a secret, so Xiaoling told him the truth. Nangong teacher doesn't have a disciple. Can I be his disciple? Chapter 111. Disciple. Little Linger heard Yuri Koyuri's words, and she was a little confused for a while. After all, Nangongja was actually a person who didn't like to deal with people. Otherwise, he wouldn't invite acquaintances to his house for dinner, and there were only a few people. If it was another ninja with Nangongja's strength, he would have various entanglements with various forces, or exchange for an extraordinary status. Unlike Nangongja, who just wanted to get away from all kinds of trouble and didn't want to do anything and just stayed at home. I think brother won't accept disciples, right? After all, brother doesn't like troublesome things. Xiaoling Air could only smile awkwardly as she spoke with a somewhat complicated mood. Yuri Koyuri looked at Little Linger's appearance, and for a while, he didn't know what to say, and just nodded gently. He said, There was nothing else to say. Nangongja didn't agree to the request of the ninja school to take a few more classes, and he said that he wanted to leave enough time to perfect his own practice. Whether it was the 3 generations or the ninja school's higher-ups, there was no way to find a suitable reason to persuade Nangongja. After all, whether it was the 3 generations or the ninja school, they didn't have any requirements for how many students Nangongja could take. All they wanted was an attitude and a face. It was enough to let everyone see that the 3 generations and the ninja school's higher-ups could invest a lot of resources and energy to cultivate the next generation, and a ninja like Nangongja was just right. So when the class was over, Nangongja went home. Saying that he wanted to perfect himself wasn't a complete excuse. After all, Nangongja's momentum in the class just now made it clear. A person's body has a limit, and Nangongja is now in a state where he is close to his limit. However, Nangongja's strength had been increasing rapidly over the past few years. Regardless of whether it was swordsmanship or natural energy, They were both broad and profound knowledge. If he wanted to truly master them, he would need a lot more time to settle down. Nangongzhi is also ready to use this long vacation to calm down and sort out his various fighting skills. I will first sort out the most familiar swordsmanship. Nangongzhi muttered to himself. At the beginning, Nangongzhi actually relied on the various swordsmanship essences contained in the god's disaster sword to practice his swordsmanship. It's not bad, it's just that it's too big a step. The essence of swordsmanship is the way to use the sword, the knack of using the sword. However, it lacked all kinds of basic swordsmanship. This was also the reason why Nangongzhi's swordsmanship was not low, and he even comprehended the profound meaning of sacrifice heart technique when he first arrived in Konoha, but he still had a hard time fighting against Kakashi. Even under the pressure of White Fang's momentum, he was so embarrassed. After that, under the joint teaching of Li Yang and White Fang, Nangongzhi began to slowly come into contact with some of the basics of swordsmanship, but the basics are best learned when a person is a blank piece of paper. Because only at that time, a person won't have any strange habits to form flaws. Obviously, Nangongzhi was a little late. Fortunately, when he walked in the ninja world, he didn't meet any opponents who specialize in swordsmanship. At this time, maybe you will ask Nangongzhi if the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist who didn't practice swordsmanship. The author wants to say that they really didn't practice swordsmanship at all. These people used the swords in their hands as a tool to improve their ninjutsu cultivation, and they didn't really concentrate on swordsmanship. Of course, when Nangongzhi fought with them, he didn't purely rely on swordsmanship, but more on the magic of internal energy and physical fitness. It's funny to say that when Nangongzhi really changed some of his bad habits, it was not long ago in Banishment's spiritual space. Banishment, as the creator of God's retribution sword, was an amazing internal energy cultivator, which completely exposed Nangongzhi's small habits that he covered up with internal energy. Banishment didn't care whether Nangongzhi was pressed for time or not, he just wanted to sharpen Nangongzhi. How could he let go of such a flaw? But since Nangongzhi returned to Woodleaf, he really didn't have much time to reflect on himself. After all, there was a big difference between understanding something in the spiritual space and using it in the real world. After returning, he has been busy comforting his family, scheming against 3 generations, and then helping Xianxia to ensure her safety, and training Little Linger. In the end, in order to let Little Linger grow better, 3 generations asked him to be a substitute teacher at the ninja school. These things were really a waste of time and effort, and it was really difficult for Nangongzhi to have time to practice. Fortunately, everything was finally on the right track. A few days ago, Xianxia took her child back to her home. Although Nangongzhi still had to ensure the safety of the mother and child, he didn't have to be worried all day long. As long as he had time, he would go and take a look. Little Linger also went to the ninja school, and she didn't just rely on Nangongzhi and Nangongro to teach her. Naturally, it was also a relief. Phew, I didn't expect that I would do so many things. Originally, I just wanted to rest, but in the end, all kinds of things kept coming. Although Nangongzhi always knew that as long as a person was in the Jianghu, he was often helpless. But at this moment, he still felt very tired. And he didn't know why, but Nangongzhi always felt that something was going to happen, and he felt a little uneasy. Forget it, forget it. When the time comes, there will be a way. No matter what is going to happen, I just need to protect my family and friends. As for the rest, I don't care. So Nangongzhi began to slowly practice his various swordsmanship in his mind. From the simplest stabbing, poking, picking, cutting, and breaking, it slowly became more and more complicated, with some of the meaning of the fatal 13 swords. All kinds of swordsmanship instantly became murderous. Then Nangongzhi began to slowly integrate some of the subtleties of the Hatake family's swordsmanship that he learned from White Fang into his swordsmanship. Swordsmanship and swordsmanship were somewhat interconnected. Integrating White Fang's swordsmanship into his swordsmanship also provided an overbearing feeling to his swordsmanship. In addition, after Nangongzhi learned various light and agile swordsmanship in Banishment, Nangongja also extracted the essence of it and integrated it into his swordsmanship. In the end, Nangongja deduced such a move. A strange swordsmanship that used murderous intent as the blade, overbearing as the bone, and light as the mind. Well, this is somewhat interesting. Chapter 112. It's a pity that although I have already set the foundation for this set of swordsmanship, I still need more time to perfect it. I don't know when I will be able to perfect such a swordsmanship. Nangongja once again practiced the swordsmanship he had just deduced in his mind, but as expected, he found many flaws. How difficult is it to create a swordsmanship? Not only does it require vision and accumulation, but it also requires more time to polish and perfect it. Among the countless seniors in the shinobi world, there are also people who are good at using swords. But how many swordsmanship routines have been passed down to this day? Although the prosperity of ninjutsu is also a factor that inhibits the development of swordsmanship, it is more because creating a perfect swordsmanship is a very difficult job. If it is for children to practice the basic swordsmanship, Nangongja can create a set of swordsmanship in an afternoon without deducing it. But if it is for his future life, Nangongja can't tolerate the slightest flaw that he can find. Deducing the swordsmanship is extremely exhausting, so he only practiced it twice in his mind. Nangongja felt a dull pain in his temple, and his head became a little dizzy, so he didn't continue to deduce it. He took out the green jade wine pot entrusted to him by the banishment and sat down in the corridor, looking at the flowers and trees in the garden, drinking alone. Time always passes by without giving people time to react. No one can stop the passing of summer and winter. 3 years have passed in a hurry. In the past 3 years, Nangongja has been deducing his swordsmanship. But in recent days, the progress is getting slower and slower. His experience and skills are not enough for Nangongja to find more flaws in his swordsmanship. But Nangongja still faintly feels that his swordsmanship is not perfect enough and needs to continue to deduce. But Nangongja can no longer continue. Not to mention Nangongja, the acquaintances around him have also changed a lot. Mayubuki and Shinakushina have also sent the 3-year-old Naruto and Sakura to Nangongja, hoping that Nangongja can guide these children in taijutsu. Although 3-year-old children can't receive any high-intensity training, they can't extract chakra without restraint. But they can still learn some basic taijutsu and practice hand seals. Even because the children of the ninja world generally develop faster, the children of this period can already use the advantage of young age to train their body's flexibility. As the substitute teacher of the ninja school's actual combat class, Nangongja's educational level is naturally not to be underestimated. Shaolinger's batch of students has successfully graduated this year, and it's time for the final exam, which is the Genin assessment. The class taught by Nangongja performed exceptionally well. Whether it's the actual combat results or the theoretical results, they are a lot better than the other classes. Shinakushina and Mayubuki are naturally very relieved to let Nangongja train their children. In the afternoon, the door of Nangongja's house was knocked on by 2 children. "Uncle Nangong, we're here." The children's voices also came at the same time. Naturally, it was the 2 children, Naruto and Sakura. "Uncle Nangong, where did Sister Ling go?" The young Sakura and little Linger have a very good relationship, and little Linger is very happy because she has 2 children who are similar to her younger brother and sister. So she has always spoiled these 2 children, so when Sakura comes to Nangongja's house, she always subconsciously looks for little Linger. Little Linger? It seems that she followed their guidance to go out of the village to perform tasks, but it's just cleaning up the garbage or helping to plow the fields. I think she'll be back soon. Nangongja touched Sakura's head, and Sakura also threw herself into Nangongja's arms, with a look of enjoyment. Sakura has always had this kind of attachment to Nangongja, and sometimes she likes to act coquettishly to Nangongja. However, Sakura's parents have a lot of Nangongja. After all, she is their daughter. Being so close to Nangongja is still very jealous. "Uncle, what are we going to learn today?" Unlike Sakura, Naruto is very carefree to talk to Nangongja. Although Yandame-sama has been investigating all kinds of things outside the village, there are still letters sent to Woodleaf from time to time. Naruto naturally knows that his father is Woodleaf's Yandame-sama. But he doesn't seem to like his father very much. After all, Nangongja has been taking care of Shinakushina and her son all these years, and Nangongja also helped with some physical work. During the holidays, Nangongja will also go to Shinakushina's house to visit. Although Naruto has never said it, in his heart, Nangongja is almost like a father. Shinakushina can also see it, but she didn't stop it. A child without a father since childhood can let Nangongja make up for the lack of a father, which is good for Naruto. And the 3 generations want the relationship between Nangongja and Naruto to be closer. Naruto is 9 Tails' column force, and some ordinary villagers and ninjas may not know about it, but for the Woodleaf's higher-ups, it is not a secret at all. Who knows how many people have been secretly plotting against Naruto? With Nangongja, such a powerful existence in front of him, it also makes it difficult for more people in the dark to reach out. What does Naruto want to learn today? Nangongja smiled and looked at Naruto and asked, "How old is Naruto? How can he have a plan for what he wants to learn?" Biting his finger and thinking for a long time, he didn't come up with anything. But then he saw the disaster sword that Nangongja has been putting in the hall, and he secretly had a plan in his heart. Nangongja is an existence who relies on swordsmanship to move the Woodleaf. Naruto has heard a lot of stories about Nangongja. So he secretly has a plan in his heart. "Uncle, can I learn swordsmanship from you?" Nangongja was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that Naruto, who is usually lively, would want to learn swordsmanship from him at this moment. "Uncle Nangong, I want to learn swordsmanship too." Sakura in Nangongja's arms seemed to be tempted by Naruto at this moment. She also said eagerly in Nangongja's arms. Looking at the 2 children, Nangongja was also thinking in his heart. "Although I'm learning internal strength, I can't let the 2 children learn from me. But swordsmanship can still be taught. Although I'm still very young, it's a good choice to find a successor, isn't it?" So Nangongja immediately said, "I've been training your hand seals and flexibility these days. I didn't think of teaching you swordsmanship, but since you want to try, it's not impossible. If you want to learn swordsmanship, you have to learn fist techniques first. Only when you know how to control your body's strength can you learn swordsmanship better. As the saying goes, a month with a staff, a year with a saber, a lifetime with a spear, and a treasure sword with you. If you want to learn swordsmanship well, there's still a long way to go." The 2 children were confused, but they felt that Nangongja's words were very reasonable, so they nodded. Nangongja also had a plan in his heart. Chapter 113. After Nangongja finished speaking, he looked at the confused Naruto and Sakura in front of him. For a moment he felt that it was a little funny, so he shook his head and said, "Why am I telling you this? You won't understand anyway. Watch carefully, I'll show you a set of fist techniques. Watch carefully and try to remember as much as you can. After that, we'll be practicing the fist techniques in the future." As Nangongja spoke, he carried Sakura, who was in his arms, and put her to the side. Then he walked to the middle of the courtyard. After calming himself down for a while, Nangongja began to move. The fist technique was very simple. It was nothing more than a set of footwork and some basic fist techniques. However, as Nangongja fought, he gradually added more strength. Some of his understanding of the sword also slowly merged into the fist technique. For a moment, regardless of whether it was the sand on the ground or the leaves on the trees, they were all swept up by Nangongja's fist wind. As Nangongja increased his strength, the dust and leaves slowly formed the image of a tiger. Every time Nangongja punched, it was accompanied by the roar of a tiger and the sound of thunder and lightning. It was the image of the tiger and leopard thunder that was formed when Nangongja's physical strength was exerted. Although it was full of sword intent that shrouded the fist technique, it didn't look like a sword. Instead, it looked like a sword embryo. Most of the body's strength was used on the muscles, bones, and it constantly improved the physical quality of the fist technique. In order to make the child more interested in the fist technique, Nangongja fought a little more flamboyantly. At the same time, he deliberately created the image of the tiger and leopard thunder. Even the current Nangongja began to sweat slightly after 3 rounds of fighting. This was the nature of the fist technique. The higher the strength, the stronger the physical quality, and the greater the pressure on the body. This was a boxing technique that Nangongja had developed over the past few years to train his body and maintain his stamina. It could also be considered as a subsidiary product of perfecting his swordsmanship, right? Amazing, amazing. Uncle Nangong played really well. When Sakura saw that Nangongja was done, she clapped and praised Nangongja. Children couldn't understand the essence of this fist technique, but Nangongja's vigorous movements just now were quite a performance. Although Naruto did not speak, his pair of beady eyes were fixed on Nangongja. Needless to say, this kid was eyeing Nangongja's skills. You only know how to make Uncle happy. Nangongja walked to Sakura's side, squatted down and rubbed Sakura's baby fat face. The little girl didn't feel anything. Instead, she was still smiling, and even enjoyed Nangongja rubbing her face like this. She was like a kitten being stroked on the head, with a face full of satisfaction. I'll tell you this first. Although this set of fist technique has a certain attack power, it is very limited. Its greatest function is to temper the muscles and bones. If you really fight with someone and use this set of fist technique, you may suffer a few more hits. Nangongja said, and looked at Naruto's face standing next to him. This little guy is a devil incarnate. Although he doesn't bully other children because he is the child of Yondaime Hokage, he also pulled a large group of children to be the king of children. Woodleaf was often tossed by these children all day long. Not only Shinakushina was often asked to talk to the patrolling ninjas, but sometimes even Nangongja was complained about by the ninjas. Now, he warned Naruto in advance, it can be regarded as a little less trouble in the future. As expected by Nangongja, Naruto, the little guy's face became a little uncomfortable when he heard that this set of fist technique can't be used in actual combat. But children are also simple-minded. Just now Nangongja's fist technique looked so powerful. Even if this set of fist technique can't be used, at least it can scare the opponent, right? Seeing that the two children had no other opinions, Nangongja patted Sakura and Naruto's small head. Then he said, "Okay, you two go to the yard and show me." The two children were also obedient, and soon went to the middle of the yard to practice. Sakura has always been very smart. After Nangongja practiced 3 times, although some details were not remembered, the general routine was very clear. From the beginning to the end, although he stumbled a bit, he still managed to finish a set of fist techniques that had a beginning and an end. And Naruto? How to say it? If you put it nicely, he is not very skilled, but if you put it bluntly, he is really a dog's fart. Basically, except for the beginning and ending of the fist technique taught by Nangongja, the middle is simply a mess. There is no sense of Nangongja's fist technique. Even Nangongja, the creator of this fist technique, felt that this set of fist technique is not his at all. Okay, Sakura and Naruto, you can stop for a while. Let me give you some pointers. When you are practicing, there are still some mistakes in your form and strength. Nangongja also walked to the middle of the yard, looked at Sakura and said, "Sakura is not bad. After all, you have only seen it 3 times, but you have already remembered the overall routine. In a while, I will slowly teach you some strength techniques and correct some of your movements." After Sakura heard Nangongja's evaluation, she was slightly happy. After all, her uncle Nangong praised her. At the same time, she glanced at Naruto, which made Naruto a little unhappy. He quickly ran to Nangongja's side and asked eagerly, "Uncle, what about me? What about me? I am so smart, I am definitely much better than Sakura." Nangongja was speechless for a while. "You are indeed very good, but don't you know where you are good at?" "Yes, Naruto is also very good. This set of boxing is completely beyond the limits of boxing. It is unrestrained and unrestrained. It is indeed very good." As Nangongja spoke, Naruto became more and more happy. He looked at Sakura provocatively. "You see, Uncle also said that I am good. You are a violent woman, you can't compare to me at all." However, when Naruto looked at Sakura, he was not angry at all. Instead, he looked at her with interest. For a moment, They did not know what was going on. Nangongja looked at Naruto, who was confused, and chopped Naruto's head with his hand. Naruto shouted that it was painful, but Nangongja did not feel sorry at all. Naruto, listen to me correct Sakura's movements at the side. Then learn bit by bit. When you are practicing the boxing I taught you, I will slowly teach you the details. Chapter 114. The sun gradually shifted from the east to the middle, and unknowingly, it was already noon. The thin mist in the morning had long been dispersed by the rays of the sun. In the courtyard of Nangongja's house, Sakura was practicing the body refining fist technique that Nangongja had taught her. As for Nangongja, he sat in the corridor and watched Sakura practice the fist technique. From time to time, he would give some pointers. Naruto sat beside Nangongja. Learning fist techniques required a certain impression in one's memory before one could practice. After a series of random punches, it would be better to just sit there and watch others practice. Brother, I'm back. The door opened at the same time, and the two people who walked in were Nangong-ro and Mishiro. In these few years, Mishiro had been quiet for a long time. He actually teamed up with Yachue to open a clothing store. Every day, he and Yachue would take turns to look after the store in the morning and afternoon. It could be considered as a form of entertainment for their daily life. Today was the day that Mishiro went to look after the store. It seemed that Nangong-ro had gone to look for Mishiro after returning from the hospital. Oh, you two little guys are here too. Coincidentally, Sister bought a lot of fruits, vegetables, meat, and fish. Today, Sister will show you her skills. Nangong-ro saw the few children and was very happy. She raised the stuffed bag in her hand and said, "The happiness of children was so simple. One meal was enough, wasn't it? That's great. There's good food." Whether it was Sakura or Naruto, they stopped what they were doing and ran to Nangong-ro's side. They surrounded Nangong-ro and chattered about how they learned the fist technique from Nangongja. Nangong-ro did not feel annoyed. Instead, she listened with great interest. When he found out that Naruto's learning wasn't going so smoothly, he even gently patted Naruto's head and urged Naruto to work harder in learning. Nangongja looked at his younger sister. For a moment, he looked like an old man. He kept sighing that his younger sister had grown up and was already so good at taking care of people. Nangong-ro, on the other hand, was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She acted coquettishly in front of Nangongja. Nangongja was already 19 years old. Even though Nangong-ro was a few years younger than Nangongja, she was already 16 years old. Woodleaf Village had quite a number of girls who had gotten married at this age, so it was natural for young girls to be shy when such a topic was brought up. Okay, you two don't need to practice the fist technique anymore. Go help Roa, Jejia and Mishiro, Jejia and cook together. Nangongja walked to Naruto and Sakura's side. He patted the two children's heads and asked them to help cook. He watched the two children, Nangong-ro and Mishiro, cook together. Nangongja suddenly felt that this kind of life couldn't be better. However, he inadvertently glanced at a shadowy location. He didn't do anything and just went into the room. Oh no! It seems that I have to quickly report to the Lord. This is already the 5th time this month that Nangongja discovered my location. Although Nangongja's temperament isn't bad, he didn't directly make a move on me. But how could a person called Yama be afraid of killing people? There was a slight movement in the shadows, but soon there was no sign of it. It was the same as what Nangongja saw, but it still made him feel that something was missing. On a sparsely populated street near Nangongja's house, a person wearing a hooded robe appeared. A white mask with floral patterns was placed on the face of this figure. After a while, the person wearing the mask walked to a large tree in a deserted practice field in Woodleaf Village. He took out a small scroll that was about the size of a thumb, bit his finger, and smeared his blood on the magic array in the scroll. A weak wave of energy was emitted from the scroll. The masked person pressed the scroll in his hand on the tree in front of him. The fluctuation of the scroll and the tree seemed to have some kind of resonance. A wave of ripples spread from the place where the scroll touched the tree, as if the space was distorted. After the masked person looked at his surroundings, he walked into the distorted space. At this moment, Nangongzhe, who was eating, slightly changed his expression, but he quickly adjusted. He continued to chat with Nangongro and Mishiro one sentence at a time. Sir, you told me to report to you every time I was discovered by Nangongzhe. Today, I was discovered again. In the gloomy cave, the masked and robed man was kneeling on the ground with one knee. He respectfully reported to the person in front of him. In front of the masked person, there was a seat made of black stone. A cold aura was emitted from the stone seat, proving that the stone seat was not ordinary. On the stone seat, there was a slightly blurry shadow sitting on it. Oh, it's fine if you're discovered. I originally sent you to let him discover you. Where's the other target? The shadow's voice was very strange. It was obvious that it had been altered. However, the indifference in the voice could not be hidden even if it was altered. The target is normal. There are daily reports. The masked person heard the shadow's question and immediately replied. With Nangongzhe's ability, how could he not discover the target's little tricks? However, this target is really out of Danzo's expectations. He actually began to deliberately hide some information. Let's see if Danzo will go for wool and come home shorn. The shadow laughed and said with a hint of sarcasm. The Danzo that the shadow mentioned was the name of the leader of the woodleaf roots, Shimura Danzo. Sir, should I continue to keep an eye on these two targets? The masked person asked. No need, woodleaf roots are going to be unstable. Who knows, it might even affect Nangongzhe and the other target. If Nangongzhe is really desperate, who knows what he will do? With your ability, you're still a bit lacking. You can go back for now. If there's anything else, I'll give you orders directly. The shadow waved his hand, but his tone was somewhat impatient. However, the meaning behind his words was that he was taking pleasure in other people's misfortune and watching a show. The masked person was very tactful at this moment. He did not say anything and retreated. In the empty cave, only the shadow's words were left echoing. Woodleaf roots are going to do something stupid again. Nangongzhe, since you have the tribulation sword that I wanted to take from you, why don't you show me? Then show me what you've got to gain this sword's recognition. Chapter 115. In another place in the woodleaf, whether it was the 3 generations of Hokage, the elders of Kiba, or Shimura Danzo, who had been hiding in the dark, they all gathered together. Aside from Shimura Danzo, who was sitting calmly in his chair, looking at the 3rd Hokage and Konoha's elders with his one eye, Konoha's elder council. Whether it was the 3 generations of Hokage or the elders, they were all staring at the document in front of them. The document wasn't thick, only 5 or 6 pages. But this was the 3rd time that the 3 generations of Hokage and the elders of Kiba had read it at this moment. Everyone couldn't believe what was described in the document, or everyone didn't want the things in the document to be true. The 3 generations finally put down the document in their hands and knocked the pipe in their hands on the table. After the pipe was lit, the 3 generations of Hokage didn't even take a puff. Now, there wasn't even a little bit of heat left in the pipe. This document, Danzo, are you sure it's true? The 3 generations of Hokage looked at Shimura Danzo, who was sitting opposite him, and his shadow covered most of Danzo's body. It made Danzo look even more gloomy. This was provided to me by my spy in Uchiha, and I have also sent all the members of Root to investigate the authenticity of this document. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for Root's fatal mistake, this document can almost be 100% verified. Although Root is directly under the command of Shimura Danzo, Root is still the department of the Woodleaf. Some personnel transfers and resource allocation are still recorded in Woodleaf. As long as they check carefully, they can naturally prove that Danzo is telling the truth. Collusion with foreign ninjas, hidden strategic resources, annexation of weak clans, we are very clear about these things, and if one of them is committed, it will be an absolutely unforgivable death sentence. Uchiha has not been stable since the establishment of Woodleaf. They had even carved out a part of the land for themselves, not allowing any village to plant their power there. We're not the only ones who know this. The Uchiha is also very clear about this. 3 generations stood up from his seat and took out his tobacco pouch. He slowly added more tobacco into his already empty pipe as he spoke slowly. The group of Woodleaf elders and Danzo also secretly nodded. It was undeniable that Uchiha was an important force in Woodleaf. But this kind of power was a double-edged sword. If there was someone who could suppress Uchiha, then Uchiha would be Woodleaf's strongest weapon. In the past, the first Hokage Senju Hashirama and the second Hokage Senju Tobirama were both such geniuses. When the first Hokage and the second Hokage were still alive, Uchiha could only obey the orders of Woodleaf. But now Woodleaf is unstable, and the fourth Hokage went out of the village to investigate the mysterious organization. And my 3 disciples? Alas, they have all left this sad place. I'm already old, and I can no longer suppress Uchiha's ambition. He took out a box of matches, and the bright flame burned on the tip of the match. 3 generations put the match on the pipe and wanted to light the tobacco, but after several attempts, he couldn't light it. Finally, one of 3 generations' personal bodyguards quietly appeared and lit the pipe for 3 generations. The group looked at 3 generations' slightly bent body, and they were all speechless. Since 3 generations took office, his 2 masters, the first Hokage and the second Hokage, had been his goal. Whether it was fighting with other villages, or dealing with other things, they were extremely diligent. But now 3 generations is old, and some of the hidden wounds left when he was young have slowly emerged. His strength, which was once considered powerful among the Kage level, has slowly declined. But no one can underestimate 3 generations, because the real strength of 3 generations is his innumerable ninjutsu and grasp of the battle situation. If 3 generations really went all out to fight with any of the current Kage-level ninjas, 3 generations will be the one to survive in the end. Tiger Elder is still powerful, and Ryuo is still strong. Danzo. 3 generations suddenly called Danzo's name, which made Danzo raise his head and look at the 3 generations. Looking at Danzo's murderous eyes, 3 generations secretly sighed in his heart and said, Uchiha can't be moved, at least not for a while. Danzo was also a little surprised. After all, the file he handed in can be said to have pushed Uchiha to the edge of betrayal. Such a dangerous tumor that can erupt at any time, how can it be left in the Woodleaf? Yuan Fei, do you know what you were talking about? Even when we were young, the second Hokage always told us to use Uchiha if we can, and if we can't, we must eradicate it as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be a disaster sooner or later. Now you actually want to forgive this group of traitors? What's wrong with you? You are old, so you have no guts to this point? Danzo said, and his tone gradually became sharper. He directly began to say that 3 generations is a coward. Some of the Umbu who were standing in the dark immediately stood in front of Sandame and even pulled out their swords. A person who seemed to be the leader looked at Danzo and said, Danzo, show some respect to Hokage. Some of Danzo's root ninjas also silently pulled out their swords and stood in front of the Umbu. Hokage? If I remember correctly, the current Woodleaf Hokage should be called Minato Watergate, right? As for Yuan Fei, isn't he just a member of the Elders of Kiba? Danzo didn't seem to intend to give 3 generations face, and directly said it bluntly. 3 generations Hokage was originally the result of the Elders of Kiba's discussion without Danzo, and Danzo has always been dissatisfied. But no one thought that Danzo would remove the last layer of cloth between them at this time. How dare you? The sound of swords being unsheathed sounded, whether it was the Umbu or the root ninjas. At this moment, they all pointed their swords at each other. As long as one person gave the order, they would kill each other. Enough. Haven't you made a fool of yourselves enough? Put away your swords for me. 3 generations shouted, and a burst of pressure came, making everyone feel a little depressed. But the leader of the Umbu opened his mouth and said 2 words, but 3 generations stared at him. He could only slowly put away his ninja sword, and the Umbu of the Hokage also put away their ninja swords. Sandame's slightly cloudy eyes stared at Danzo, who was sitting behind many root ninjas with swords in their hands. Chapter 116. Seeing that the atmosphere between the two sides has eased slightly, Mito and Zhuan Xiaochun, as the leaders of the elders of Kiba, also walked between the two sides. Mito was the first to speak. Danzo, tell your men to put away their swords. You're a grown-up, it's too undignified to pull out your swords. Is there anything that can't be discussed? The leader of the root ninja turned his head and looked at Shimura Danzo, who was sitting behind him, as if asking for Danzo's opinion. Danzo also nodded slightly, indicating his men to put away their swords. Seeing that Danzo has no intention to make a move, Zhuan Xiaochun also looked at the three generations and asked, Yuan Fei, Uchiha has indeed gone too far this time. And Danzo also paid a lot of money to prove this information, so it's natural that he's unwilling to be directly denied by you. Don't take it to heart. The three generations knew that Zhuan Xiaochun didn't want them to vent their anger on Danzo, otherwise, there will be internal chaos in the Hokage faction. Uchiha is still in the ascendant, it's too irrational to have a conflict with Danzo. So the three generations also nodded, indicating that they know what to do. But, Yuan Fei, since you don't want us to touch Uchiha for the time being, you should give us an explanation. Whether it's the information we have now or the last words left by the second Hokage, it proves that Uchiha is after something big. It's really not good to let them go like this. Although Zhuan Xiaochun and Mito are on the side of the three generations, there are many things that you can't blindly support without any reason. The elders of Kiba were also an important part of Woodleaf's power. The three generations needed to give the elders of Kiba and Root a reasonable explanation. I believe everyone still remembers the incident where Kumo Shinobu village forcibly abducted the daughter of the Hyuga clan's patriarch not too long ago. Three generations suddenly mentioned a major event that happened in the Hyuga clan. At that time, Kumo Shinobu actually sent a small team of ninjas to kidnap the eldest daughter of the Hyuga clan. Fortunately, the leader of the Hyuga tribe had found out and risked his life to save his daughter. They did not let the Hyuga race's Kekkei Genkai Byakugan fall into the hands of the Kumo Shinobu village. However, who would have thought that the Kumo Shinobu village would actually cause trouble for them? They wanted Woodleaf to be responsible for the death of the Kumo Shinobu village. In the end, the matter was resolved after a lot of twists and turns. However, it also made Woodleaf pay a lot of resources. They even made contact with the leader of the Hyuga clan's branch family, Hyuga Hizashi. Woodleaf had never suffered such a big loss ever since Woodleaf established the village. A lot of people were angry because of this matter. If it wasn't for the three generations forcibly suppressing this matter, who knows how big of a mess it would have caused. Since Woodleaf established the village, Woodleaf has never lost a war. Woodleaf has always been the one taking advantage. When did it become Woodleaf's turn to lose? However, the incident with Hyuga was indeed a huge loss for Konoha, but I still tried my best to suppress this matter. A lot of people said that I'm old and have lost my fighting spirit. I don't dare to fight with those who want to take advantage of Woodleaf. Three generations looked at Danzo, who was sitting in the shadows. Obviously, he was responding to Danzo's harsh words. Although I don't have many years left to live, as long as it's for Woodleaf. Even if I have to fight with the enemy now, I'm willing to give up my old life. When everyone heard the words of the Sandaime, they secretly nodded their heads. As the first Hokage and the second Hokage's disciple, who has the deepest feelings for Konoha? Without a doubt, three generations was considered. This stubborn old man indeed had the courage and strength to fight for Woodleaf. But I can fight with my life. I can kill anyone who dares to invade Woodleaf. After that, fourth generation is not in the village right now. My three disciples are also not in the village for various reasons. Now, there are only a few people who can protect Konoha. We can't afford to gamble. We can't gamble. Sandaime took a deep puff from the tobacco pipe in his hand, giving the others some time to think about the cause and effect of the situation. After a while, three generations continued. Woodleaf's main strength is actually the Naruto clan, Uchiha, Hyuga, and many small and medium-sized clans. The Hyuga have quietly withdrawn part of their strength because of Kumo Shinobu. It's not the Hyuga's fault. After all, as a member of Woodleaf, we didn't do our duty. It's normal for them to withdraw part of their strength to protect themselves. So now Woodleaf's main strength is only a few clans. Once we go to war with the Uchiha, let's not talk about whether we can completely destroy the Uchiha. How much of our strength will be consumed in the war? In the third war, Woodleaf can be said to have a big advantage. The other 4 villages have suffered different degrees of losses. How can they not want to bite off a piece of meat from Woodleaf? We can destroy the Uchiha because of a moment of anger, but can we destroy Woodleaf's future because of a moment of anger? Finally, Sandaime-sama revealed his reasons. Everyone present is Woodleaf's top management. None of them are fools who can be cajoled at will. Woodleaf is now compared to the overall level of the ninja world. There's an old saying, the tallest tree in the forest. None of the other forces will give up any opportunity to weaken Konoha's power. Once Woodleaf has internal strife, they will even cut off their own arm to destroy the Uchiha clan. How can the other ninja villages not have the idea of Woodleaf? Indeed, Yuan Fei's words are reasonable. We can deal with the Uchiha clan, but if we really go to fight the Uchiha head-on, we can't afford the losses caused. After a long silence, Mito Monitis, as the representative of the elders of Kiba, expressed his opinion. Then a group of Woodleaf elders followed. Yes, Yuan Fei's words are reasonable. Indeed, the Uchiha can't make a move now. Danzo, you have to focus on the overall situation. A group of people began to talk like this. Danzo also looked at this group of Woodleaf elders with a dark face. Before this meeting began, Danzo had already bribed all the parties in advance. He roped in a lot of Woodleaf elders to support his proposal, and these people agreed one by one. But now they directly jumped to support the 3 generations camp. It's a bit too shameless. Yuan Fei, it's good that you know in your heart, don't raise a tiger in the end. It will cause more losses. After saying that, Danzo waved the sleeve of his good hand. He walked away with an angry face. Chapter 117. Thump, thump, thump. In the empty and deep tunnel, a group of people was walking slowly. The leader was the Woodleaf root leader Shimura Danzo, who was struggling with the 3 generations just now. And this is the secret passage leading to the Woodleaf root base. After walking for a long time, they finally saw the end of the dark passage. It was a huge underground space, and a road was circling the walls of the underground space. And every once in a while, a door would appear, and there was a nameplate on it to indicate where the door leads. Danzo didn't pay attention to the ninjas who occasionally passed by along the way and went straight to his office at the end of the road. Danzo put aside the crutch in his hand, and a follower very cleverly took off the white Haori coat on his body. Danzo sat in his seat, and the ninjas who followed behind Danzo also stood in front of Danzo's desk, waiting for Danzo's orders. This time, everyone did a good job. We were able to explore the secrets of the Uchiha, and at the same time, we were able to verify the authenticity of the information. Danzo looked at the people standing in front of him, and his usually tense face slightly relaxed, and there was even a trace of gratification on his face. The ninjas heard Danzo's praise and felt warm in their hearts. We didn't achieve Sama's goal, we are really ashamed. The leader of the ninjas suddenly knelt on the ground and apologized to Danzo. But Danzo shook his head. You are not wrong, I have too many enemies. Even if there is accurate information, there are still people who want to go against me. I don't blame you, you can go down to the reward and punishment office to receive your own rewards. Sama, not only the leader of the ninjas, but the rest of the ninjas also knelt on the ground at this moment. Obviously, they were a little emotional. Okay, we are all people who have experienced the ups and downs of life. It's a bit shameful to act like this. You can leave now. Don't take this setback to heart. Our route exists to protect the Woodleaf in the dark. As long as you complete our mission seriously, that will be enough. Dealing with the higher-ups is my business. Even if I fail, it's my fault. Danzo waved his hand and dismissed the root ninjas. It has to be said that Danzo can lead such a group of root ninjas. His charisma was unquestionable. Danzo, who took the initiative to take responsibility for his mistakes, was indeed worthy of Root's ninjas to do their best for him. When all the ninjas left Danzo's office, Danzo waved to a corner of his room. A ninja walked out from the shadows and half knelt in front of Danzo. "Lord Danzo, what can I do for you?" Danzo touched his scarred chin, thought for a while and said, "How's the progress on Sky's side?" In the past 3 years, Nangongja has been occasionally going to the Woodleaf School to give lessons to the children there. After that, he will stay at home. But according to Sky's observation, Nangongja's strength seems to have increased again. I once sent a Hyuga ninja to investigate Nangongja. Whether it is the energy in his body or the vitality of his body, Nangongja is now standing on the edge of the Kage level. Hearing the report of his subordinate, Danzo couldn't help but chuckle twice. I didn't expect that the chess pieces that I arranged occasionally in the past really played a role. Since Sky is here, Nangongja will be our hidden strength. When the time is right, he can become a sharp sword that can cut through the thorns for us. After Danzo finished speaking, the bodyguard who came out from the shadows didn't dare to speak casually. Danzo's office returned to silence again. Only the sound of Danzo tapping his fingertips from time to time could be heard. "You go and inform Itachi Uchiha to report to me after this mission is over. I have something to say to him." After a long silence, Danzo said to his bodyguard. After the bodyguard responded, he once again walked back to the shadows where he came out from. Only a few slight mechanical sounds proved that the bodyguard has left. "Yuan Fei, oh Yuan Fei, you are really old. If you were young, whether it was the Uchiha's movement or the Hyuga's dissatisfaction, how could you care about it? Look at you now, you are so timid, let me help you make a decision. If you can't make up your mind, then you should retire from the position of Hokage." In the empty office, only Danzo was left, silently talking to himself. Danzo's low and firm voice echoed in the office. In Nangongja's house, in Mishiro's room, Mishiro was holding a pen and writing something in a small book in front of him. Sigh. After stopping writing, Mishiro threw the pen in his hand to the side. He also let out a soft sigh, a little sad and helpless. What's more strange is that the words in front of Mishiro's book that were clearly visible just now quietly disappeared. Only a blank page was left, under the light, reflecting a pale yellow light. "Mishiro, eat." Mishiro's door was suddenly knocked, followed by Nangongja's voice calling Mishiro to eat. Mishiro looked at the book in front of him, reached out to close it and put it in a box, then turned around and replied, "I'm coming." Nangongja went to the living room. Nangong-ro and Little Linger, who just finished a mission, were all sitting at the dining table. But the food was not touched at all. Obviously they were waiting for Mishiro to arrive to eat together. Okay, what are you waiting for me for? Let's just eat." Mishiro glanced at Nangongja. Naturally he knew that Nangongja invited him to eat together, so he rolled his eyes at Nangongja. Nangongja noticed Mishiro rolling his eyes at him, so he awkwardly scratched the back of his head. Then he hurriedly changed the topic, looked at Little Linger and said, "Little Ling, did the mission go smoothly this time?" Little Linger looked at Nangongja, then looked at Mishiro and couldn't help but laugh. "Brother Nangong, your ability to change the topic is really bad. I'm in the same team as Uchiha Yuri Koyuri, who is the top student in our class. It's just a simple mission like clearing a river. Yuri Koyuri and I can already walk on water, so naturally it wasn't difficult." After being criticized by Little Linger, Nangongja felt even more embarrassed. He could only smile embarrassedly. Okay, I knew our Little Linger is the best." Then he reached out his hand and slowly stroked Little Linger's head. Little Linger turned her head away in disdain, but her eyes revealed unconcealable happiness. Chapter 118. Itachi Uchiha was very puzzled. He was obviously an Umbu subordinate of Hokage, but when he finished the task of leaving the village and handed over some procedures, suddenly a Root Umbu came to him and said that the leader of Root, Shimura Danzo, wanted to see him. Itachi Uchiha really couldn't figure out the reason. But Danzo is also one of the most respected leaders of Woodleaf. As a ninja subordinate of Woodleaf, Itachi felt that he should go and see Danzo. So Itachi Uchiha also took a piece of black cloth, and under the leadership of the Root Ninja, he went to the underground base of Root. After Itachi's blindfold was removed, he slightly adapted to it. Itachi saw a figure sitting opposite him. Half of his face was covered with bandages, and one of his hands was also wrapped in bandages hanging around his neck. Itachi recognized this person at a glance. He is the leader of Woodleaf Root, Shimura Danzo. As a ninja from a big family, Itachi is naturally very polite. Half kneeling on the ground, he slightly lowered his head and said to Danzo sitting opposite him, "I don't know why Danzo-sama summoned me, a ninja of Hokage Zanbu?" Although his attitude was respectful and his tone was soft. But these words were a bit sarcastic. In particular, the words, Umbu under Hokage's direct command, were heavily emphasized. "Why are you looking for you? Don't you know what your own family has done?" When Danzo heard Itachi's words, he coldly snorted, and a powerful momentum instantly suppressed Itachi's body. In the momentum, there was a strong murderous aura that can't be ignored, which directly put Itachi under great pressure. "Family? I don't know what my Uchiha family has done." Although under great pressure, Itachi gritted his teeth and said such a sentence from his mouth. As a member of the Uchiha clan, Itachi valued his identity as an Uchiha very much. Someone insulted the Uchiha family in front of him. Even if that person was the leader of the Woodleaf Roots, Shimura Danzo, Itachi would not give in so easily. "You are the eldest son of the Uchiha clan's patriarch, Uchiha Fugu. Don't you know what your family has done?" Danzo said as he grabbed a document from his desk and threw it in front of Itachi Uchiha. At the same time, Itachi Uchiha withdrew his aura a little so that he could move his body a little and read the documents in front of him. Itachi Uchiha glared fiercely at Shimura Danzo in front of him, but only received a cold snort from Danzo. He picked up the documents in front of him and flipped through a few pages with slight anger. But after flipping through them, Itachi Uchiha's eyes widened as if they were about to open. He could only close the documents in his hand and carefully read from the first page. "Danzo-sama, this kind of document. Do you want my Uchiha clan to end our lives in the Woodleaf Roots?" Itachi Uchiha said as he released his aura. It was as if he wanted to compete with Danzo. "Whether the things in these documents are true or false, you will know when you go home. Why are you worried that I am lying to you? Just go home. If this document says that your Uchiha clan has colluded with foreign enemies and attempted to rebel, you can come and find me. It's not impossible for you to take my head." Danzo looked at Itachi, who was half kneeling in front of him. He actually said that if Itachi found out that he was suspicious, he could take his head. This made Itachi a little shocked. Could it be that his family really did such a thing? Itachi couldn't help but ask himself in his heart. In the end, he realized that his father, Uchiha Fugaku, would sometimes do some strange things. After he found out and asked, Uchiha Fugaku didn't say anything and just casually found a reason to send him away. "Since that is the case, I will take my leave. Danzo-sama." Itachi Uchiha stood up and bowed slightly to Danzo. Danzo waved his hand and ordered his subordinates to put a mask on Itachi Uchiha's face. Then he led him out of Root's base. This nail has been planted. The document I gave you is not fake at all. Yuan Fei always told me how loyal Itachi Uchiha is to Woodleaf. Then let me see how trustworthy he is. Danzo wasn't afraid that Itachi Uchiha would bring this document back home and report to Woodleaf about the Uchiha clan's rebellion. This was because the things mentioned in this document were just some random things that were purposely speculated about the Uchiha clan's rebellion. However, after Itachi Uchiha saw this document, Itachi Uchiha obviously wouldn't just investigate these random things. These things were hidden in the shadows. As a member of the Black Ops, Itachi Uchiha naturally had the ability to follow this trail to find the truth. Moreover, with the Uchiha clan's temperament, even if they were suspicious of Woodleaf because of this document, they wouldn't do anything. In Danzo's opinion, among the current high-ranking members of the Uchiha clan, other than Uchiha Fugaku, who was a bit scheming, the rest? A bunch of idiots whose muscles had grown into their brains. Compared to a sly old fox like Danzo, the difference was huge. Give this Uchiha boy some time, let him carefully investigate his own family, and let him do a thorough investigation of his own family. Let this naive little brat see clearly what kind of people his family is. Danzo looked at Itachi's figure that was gradually fading away and said slowly. After leaving Root's base, Itachi once again lifted his blindfold and stood in a slightly remote corner of Woodleaf. Looking around slightly, Itachi identified the direction and walked towards his own home. In just a moment, Itachi Uchiha arrived at the Uchiha clan's territory in Woodleaf. Several Uchiha clan ninjas in charge of patrolling also saw Itachi Uchiha's figure at this moment. They stepped forward and saluted. "Hello, Master Itachi, you've worked hard on the mission." If it was in the past, the gentle Itachi might have exchanged greetings with these clan members. But now, Itachi's mood was uneasy. He directly walked past these patrolling Uchiha clansmen. Looking at Itachi Uchiha's back, several Uchiha clansmen also began to discuss. "What's wrong with Master Itachi? We already greeted him, why is he acting like this?" Okay, Master Itachi is famous for his gentle temperament. Maybe he has an urgent matter to see the clan leader? Why are you sulking here?" "That's right, Master Itachi has always been good to us. Maybe there really is an urgent matter this time." The few of them chatted casually and finally came to a consensus. They continued to patrol the clan's territory. After all, this is a serious matter. Chapter 119. Itachi strode to the courtyard of his home and met many clansmen along the way. After these people greeted Itachi, Itachi still did not respond to any of them, which made them very puzzled. Just as Itachi was about to walk to his home, a childish voice sounded from behind. "Brother Itachi, you're back? You've been gone for a long time, Sasuke missed you so much." Itachi finally stopped and turned around to look at the child who was talking to him and hitting me. Black hair, a pair of black pupils, and a face somewhat similar to Itachi. The person who just spoke was Itachi's younger brother, the second son of the Uchiha clan's head Uchiha Fugaku, and the second young master of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke. When Itachi turned around, Sasuke threw himself into Itachi's arms. He hugged him tightly and said, "Brother Itachi, you lied, you said that this mission was very simple. You can come back in half a month, but now it's been 2 months since you came back from outside." Looking at his younger brother, Uchiha Itachi's anger and resentment disappeared in an instant. He lowered his voice and squatted down so that his eyes were on the same level as Uchiha Sasuke's, and said, "Uchiha Sasuke, it's brother's fault, the mission is a little troublesome. It was delayed for a few days, but after this mission last night, I can rest for a long time. Brother will train with Sasuke, okay?" Sasuke heard his brother's words, but he didn't pay attention to the training part behind, but asked anxiously, Brother, your mission is very troublesome, do you have it? If you're injured, we have to go home and find Mom. Mom is amazing, she cured my knee last time." Listening to his brother's concern for him, Itachi Uchiha's heart was also warm. He touched his brother's head and said, "It's okay, brother is very powerful. How come you have it?" In fact, Itachi was indeed injured in this mission, and the injury was not light. Now, he relied on this Sharingan to gain the strength of a special Jonin. This time, Itachi went to assassinate a person who was protected by a Jonin team. Although he finally completed the mission successfully, he also paid a big price. It was also because of the injury that affected the journey. He rested outside the village for nearly a month before returning to the ninja village. But how could Itachi say that he was injured to his brother, which made Sasuke more worried? "That's right. I know that brother is the best, the mission can be completed easily." Little Sasuke nodded vigorously, as if he was trying to increase the credibility of his words. Itachi looked at his little brother and carried him on his back. "Let's go, brother hasn't carried you for a long time. This time I'll carry you home." Hearing Itachi's words, Sasuke also leaned over Itachi's back with a satisfied look. Looking at Sasuke's smiling face, Itachi's heart sank. although the information Danzo showed him didn't have conclusive evidence to prove that Uchiha clan colluded with foreign enemies in an attempt to subvert Woodleaf's rule. But Itachi was also a person who had seen the wind and waves, although these clues weren't obvious. But combined together, it can still be seen that Uchiha clan's plan was not small, which has threatened Woodleaf's rule. As a member of the Umbu, Itachi naturally knew that Woodleaf has the power that Uchiha clan can't stop. As long as Woodleaf is willing to pay the price, it's not impossible to destroy Uchiha clan, who now has no peak power like Hokage. Father, how can you be so greedy? How long after the war, you want to plot the entire foundation of Woodleaf? Sasuke, who was born after the war, Itachi really didn't want them to go through such a cruel baptism of blood and fire. I will protect you well. Itachi's mouth whispered softly. His voice was so low that even Sasuke, who was lying on his sad side, didn't hear it. But the promise was very serious. For this promise, Itachi can do anything as long as he can protect his brother. Even if Itachi had already walked to his house, even if he was carrying his brother, Itachi still quickly arrived at the door of his house. After gently knocking on the door, Itachi opened the door. Uchiha Mikoto also heard the sound of her door being opened the door and saw her two sons at the door. She didn't know when Sasuke fell asleep on Itachi's back. He made a slight snoring sound, and his nose twitched from time to time. "Mother, I'm back," Itachi respectfully said to his mother, and at the same time, gently put down the sleeping Sasuke on his back. Uchiha Mikoto picked up Sasuke and walked inside the house. Can't you be so polite to me? Can't you learn from your brother and act like a spoiled child in front of your mother?" Looking at her eldest son who has always been very calm, Uchiha Mikoto couldn't help but say, "It's right to respect for mother." Itachi still said with a serious face, "Oh, my child is really not cute." Mikoto pouted her mouth and whispered slightly. With Itachi's hearing, he could naturally hear what his mother said. But after a slight smile, he didn't pay attention to it. Walking to the living room of his house, Uchiha Fugaku was also sitting on the tatami, reading a newspaper. After seeing Itachi come back, he also said, "Oh, Itachi is back. How was the mission? Did it go smoothly?" Hearing his father's question, Itachi immediately replied, "Thank you for your concern, father. Although there were some troubles, they were solved. The mission was completed smoothly." "Good, that's good. As a member of the Uchiha clan, no matter what kind of difficulties, we must face them bravely. You did a good job." Uchiha Fugaku stood up, walked to Itachi's side, and reached out his hand to pat his son's shoulder. Then he went to his wife, Uchiha Mikoto, looked at the sleeping Sasuke and said, "Go get the family's best medicine and send it to Itachi later." Hearing her husband's words, Mikoto didn't care about sending Sasuke back to his room. She looked at her son anxiously and asked, "Itachi, you're injured? Is it serious? Did you take care of it? Go to your room and wait. Mom will treat you after putting Sasuke down." Mikoto's relationship with Shinakushina is not bad, and she also has some foundation in medical ninjutsu. So she can still treat injuries. Hearing that Itachi was injured, she was eager to treat her child. Just a moment ago, she said that her child wasn't cute enough, but now she cared more about her child than anyone else. At this moment, the sentimental mother's eyes were covered with a thin layer of mist. Itachi's heart was touched, and at the same time, he took a deep look at Uchiha Fugaku who was standing next to his mother. Chapter 120. Uchiha Mikoto put Sasuke in the room, covered him with a quilt, and walked to Itachi's door. Uchiha Mikoto reached out and gently knocked on her son's door. "Itachi, mommy will come in and check your wounds." But after waiting for a long time, there was still no response. She hurriedly pushed open Uchiha's door and saw Itachi lying on the ground. "Itachi, are you okay?" This scared Mikoto, and she immediately ran to her son's side. One of her hands was covered with a glowing green chakra ball and gently covered Itachi's body. The gentle nature of the medical chakra slowly penetrated Itachi's body, and Uchiha Mikoto could clearly see her son's physical condition. Internal examination, there are minor injuries, but he has almost recovered and will be fine after a few days of rest. Meridian examination, there are signs of swelling, which may be due to a large amount of chakra passing through the meridians. It's not serious, but he needs to rest for a period of time to adjust. Spiritual power examination, the spiritual power activity is low, which may be caused by a large amount of genjutsu or excessive use of genjutsu. The specific situation needs to be further examined by professionals. Uchiha Mikoto's mouth faintly murmured Itachi Uchiha's physical condition, and her eyes were very serious and slightly anxious. After checking Itachi's internal organs, meridians, and spiritual power, she found that there were some minor problems, and there was no possibility of causing a ninja of Itachi's level to faint. So Mikoto closed her eyes, and after silently saying "open" in her heart, her originally dark eyes now turned into a somewhat dark red, and the three tomos slowly rotated in her irises. As the wife of the head of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Mikoto was not only a beautiful vase with a cute face. On the contrary, Uchiha Mikoto was also a genius when she was young. It was also because of Uchiha Mikoto and Uchiha Fugaku's talent that a genius with infinite potential like Itachi was born. Even little Sasuke, although only 3 years old, his physical fitness, meridian's width, flexibility, and toughness are far beyond his peers. The Magatama in Mikoto's eyes spun faster and faster, leaving behind afterimages that almost formed a circle in her eyes. Mikoto felt the changes in chakra in her body. Her right hand turned into a sword and pressed against Itachi's forehead. Streams of eye power flowed into Itachi's body. After a short while, Mikoto removed her finger from Itachi's forehead. Looking at Mikoto's appearance, drops of sweat were dripping down her face. The pair of Sharingan that was originally bright red in color has been forced to converge at this moment. Mikoto's expression couldn't help but become tired, and her face paled. Itachi Uchiha, who had fallen to the ground, finally regained consciousness. He looked at his mother in front of him and couldn't help but ask, "Mother, what happened to you? Why do you look so bad?" Looking at her eldest son, Mikoto put her hand on Itachi's head and gently stroked it. "Mother is fine. It's just that I consumed a lot of energy just now. When I came to find you, you had already fallen to the ground. After I checked you, I found that your eye power is seriously lacking. It should be because you overdrew the power of your Sharingan when you were fighting someone, so I used a secret technique to separate a part of my eye power for you so that you can wake up as soon as possible." Listening to his mother's words, Itachi's heart suddenly felt very uncomfortable. In order to save him, his mother actually used such a dangerous secret technique. As a member of the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha naturally knew how dangerous this kind of eye power transmission is. If one is not careful, if one is lucky, the Sharingan will degenerate. If one is unlucky, one will directly lose both eyes. How can he let his mother do such a thing? "Mother, you don't have to use such a dangerous method to save me. As long as you properly recuperate, there will always be a way to make up for the loss of eye power. But if something happens to you, it won't be able to make up for it, right?" Mikoto looked at Itachi, who was looking at her with a worried expression, and smiled. Although her face was a bit pale, but a unique feminine radiance of motherhood slowly emitted from her. "I know that the loss of eye power can be slowly made up for. But when I look at the pain my child is going through, I see that my child is frowning. As a mother, even if I know that I am doing something pointless and dangerous, I must do it." Mikoto reached out her hand and stroked her child's hair. "My little Itachi has been very obedient since he was a child, very sensible. Many people have told Mother that my little Itachi's talent is far beyond ordinary people, and that he will be the pride of the Uchiha in the future. But Mother doesn't want my little Itachi to become so powerful. I have even prayed countless times to the heavens to let my child become an ordinary person, because if my child becomes powerful, he will be forced to become a sharp knife for the Uchiha. Rather than that, it is better to be mediocre. But the heavens still didn't listen to my pleas. My little Itachi is indeed a rare genius. Just like that, he graduated early, became a genin, rushed to the battlefield, promoted to a chunin, and finally joined the Umbu. You have indeed made the Uchiha proud, but in contrast, you have deep and shallow scars on your body, and your soul is filled with cracks. Since childhood, my little Itachi has been a kind person. Whenever he sees an injured animal, he will beg me to bandage it. Whenever he sees someone in trouble, he will do his best to help them. Just like now, he is being forced to take another person's life. My little Itachi's heart is filled with helplessness. Mother knows very well. Mother really doesn't want my son to struggle in this kind of torment. Mikoto said. Tears flowed out from her eyes. She hugged her child in her arms and said these words with some emotion. Itachi was just about to call Mikoto Mausama, but halfway through he changed it to Mother, which he rarely called out. Mother is here. Hearing Itachi's voice, Mikoto also responded. Mother, no matter what will happen to me, I will protect my mother and brother. If anyone wants to hurt you, I will not let them go. Even if it is my father. Itachi silently added such a sentence in his heart, but no one knew. But this kind of resolution is also engraved in the depths of Itachi's heart. Letting go of her hands, Mikoto wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She said with a smile, all right, crying like this in front of your own child. Mother will go out first. I have already checked your injuries. It is not a big problem. You will be fine after a good rest. After saying that, Mikoto walked out of Itachi's room. Weasel was left alone in his room, deep in thought. Chapter 121. In the Uchiha family's territory, Itachi was strolling alone. Although he was strolling, once one studied Itachi's route, it was not difficult to find that Itachi was slowly walking towards a warehouse where the Uchiha clan usually stored vegetables and food. Looking at this place that was usually used to store ordinary food for the clan, Itachi's brows slightly wrinkled. The guards here were the same as before. They were selected from the relatively old people of the Uchiha clan who were no longer ninjas. Two old people who seemed to be around 50 years old were sitting at the entrance of the warehouse at this moment. They seemed to be chatting about something. However, with his eyesight, Itachi found some talismans hidden in some secret corners of the walls of the warehouse. Waves of slight chakra waves were released from them from time to time. They resonated with each other and formed a barrier that surrounded the entire warehouse. Sure enough, Father has an ulterior motive. The barrier was actually a very simple sensing barrier. If there was anything different, it was just that the fluctuations of an ordinary sensing barrier were weaker. Looks like I have to give it a try. Itachi thought in his heart, and his feet moved. He strode towards the entrance of the warehouse and the barrier was immediately triggered. Several auras instantly rose from the surrounding courtyards and moved around several times. The person who released the aura had already appeared in front of Itachi. Who dares to trespass into the Uchiha clan's warehouse? They let this uncle teach this? Master Itachi a good lesson. The person in charge of guarding the warehouse seemed to have a slightly bad temper. He didn't even see who was standing in front of him and already began to speak ruthlessly. But halfway through his words, he naturally saw that the person in front of him was actually the eldest son of the clan head, Itachi Uchiha. He could only bow to Itachi Uchiha with an embarrassed expression. Some of the clansmen behind the Uchiha who were responsible for guarding the warehouse also followed suit and bowed to Itachi. But then, the leader looked at Itachi and asked, I don't know why Itachi-sama came to such an ordinary warehouse. Is there something you need? Itachi smiled and said, It's nothing, I just came to take a look. But with your strength, you actually came to protect such an ordinary warehouse. It seems that our Uchiha family really values these grains? Although Itachi had a smile on his face, he still emphasized the words, normal storage, when he spoke. Master Itachi, please don't make things difficult for an errand boy like me. I was only transferred here according to orders. It's my boss's orders. It's not something I can choose. Who else could become the superior of the Uchiha clan? It could only be Uchiha Fugaku, the head of the Uchiha clan, or the elders of the Uchiha clan. The leader said this because he wanted Itachi to know that these things were arranged by people at his father's level. Don't meddle in it casually. Otherwise, those in high positions may not necessarily care about Itachi's identity as the young master of the family. But what if I want to go in and take a look today? Originally, the leader thought that with Itachi's intelligence, he naturally wouldn't do such a thing. But no one expected that Itachi not only didn't retreat at this moment, but also unscrupulously exuded his aura. A surging chakra wave was emitted from Itachi's body from time to time. Master Itachi, although you have become a special jonin at a young age, your talent is extraordinary. But sometimes talent can't beat time. Please retreat as soon as possible. The leader of the guards also took a step forward at this moment. The aura he exuded was the strength of a jonin. Looking at the leader of the guards, Itachi also thought in his heart. Although he is not weaker than an ordinary jonin, most of the jonins of the Uchiha clan have awakened at least 2 Tomo Sharingan. And to be able to be directly commanded by the higher-ups to guard the warehouse, then this jonin will at least have 3 Tomo Sharingan. The only time he defeated a jonin was by relying on his Sharingan and a bit of luck. So Itachi also took a step back and put away his aura. Looking at the leader of the guards, he said, "I'm just curious and I want to take a look. Since you don't want me to go in and take a look, it's okay. Goodbye." After saying that, he didn't pay attention to the expressions of these guards. Itachi walked straight away, but the leader of the guards still stretched out his hand and called one of his men and said to him, "It seems that Master Itachi has noticed something. You go now and inform the patriarch and explain the situation clearly." After the subordinate responded, he jumped up from the eaves and rushed to the place where Uchiha Fugaku was handling the internal affairs of the Uchiha clan. Itachi didn't care about the watchers' reactions and just walked straight in one direction. He only hoped to get out of the range of the leader of the guards as soon as possible. But suddenly, in an alley beside him, an arm pulled Itachi into the alley. As a member of the Woodleaf Umbu, Itachi's reaction speed is naturally amazing. In an instant, he took out a kunai from the ninja bag behind him and wanted to fight back. Crack! The sound of metal colliding suddenly sounded, and the 2 kunai collided with each other. "Brother Shursui? Are you—" Seeing the face of the person in front of him, Itachi couldn't help but exclaim. The person who came is Uchiha Shursui, known as Body Flicker Shursui. But Shursui's current situation seems to be very wrong. He only opened one of his eyes. "So, don't be so excited. Come with me." For some reason, Uchiha Shursui, who is usually very talkative, didn't say anything to Itachi this time. Instead, he took Itachi's hand and walked into the depths of the alley. Uchiha Shursui stretched out a hand and gently knocked one of the bricks on the wall at the end of the alley. A dark hole appeared in the left corner of the road. "Come with me, I'll tell you everything you want to know." Shursui looked at the hole and said to Itachi. Itachi also nodded. Shursui is the person who took care of him since he was a child like his own brother. Not to mention that Itachi really wants to find out what happened to the Uchiha clan. But looking at Shursui's current state, Itachi can't just leave him alone. So Itachi followed Shursui into the hole. Under the hole is a passage leading to a basement. After entering the basement, Shursui didn't greet Itachi Uchiha, who he regarded as a younger brother. Instead, he picked up a flint and lit an oil lamp in the basement. The dim light also brought some light and warmth to the dark and damp basement. Chapter 122. Brother Shursui. Looking at Shursui sitting quietly in front of him, Itachi couldn't help but say, "Danzo found you, didn't he?" Itachi was surprised. He didn't tell anyone that he met Danzo. And when he returned to the village, he was taken away by Danzo's men after going through the formalities. With the quality of root ninjas, they would never leave any clues for anyone to find them. How did Shursui know? "Brother Shursui, don't talk nonsense, I just returned to Woodleaf. How could I?" Itachi wanted to say something to cover up the fact that Danzo found him. After all, it involves the Uchiha clan's rebellion. It's not clear whether Uchiha Shursui is on Woodleaf's side or Uchiha's side. It's irrational to say the truth rashly. But halfway through, Itachi's words were abruptly swallowed back by Shursui's gaze. "I know, Danzo should have given you a document that suspected the Uchiha clan's rebellion, and then began to instigate you to work for Woodleaf, right? Shui put away his gaze that was full of coercion and smiled a little self-deprecatingly. Why would you? Itachi couldn't help but ask, but he thought that he should have discovered the source of Danzo's document. This document? Even if you didn't send it to Root, at least you verified the authenticity of the document for Root, right? Hearing Itachi's words, the smile on Shusui's face became wider and more self-deprecating. Yes, this document was given to me by Danzo. He told me a lot, although I didn't waver at that time. But little by little, I couldn't help but investigate. Speaking of this, Shui took a deep look at Itachi, as if he was looking at himself when he was investigating the truth. The warehouse you just went to is actually above this basement. I secretly built this basement with earth release, and then used some talismans to make the guards above unable to perceive the existence of this basement. Do you know what I found when I sneaked in during the investigation? There are tens of thousands of explosive tags in the whole warehouse. If these explosive tags are scattered in important positions, it can directly paralyze the entire operation system of Woodleaf, and the loss is even more serious than when the Nine Tails attacked the village. So I reported my findings to Danzo, hoping that Danzo will pass it to the 3 generations, so that they can stop the ambitions of the higher-ups in time. Hearing Shusui's words, explosive tag is actually equivalent to a high explosive tags. The power of 10,000 explosive tags can't even surpass the power of Spyudama's Bijidama. Shui and Isen, you did the right thing. We can't let the Uchiha destroy Konoha. Itachi said to Shui. In Itachi's mind, Konoha and the Uchiha are such a community of interests. If they work together, they will benefit, and if they don't, they will lose. So Shusui's can be said to be saving the Uchiha clan, and Itachi thinks it's the right thing to do. Ha! Shui smiled when he heard this, and said to Itachi, Itachi, although you have been very mature since you were a child, but some things are still too simple. Of course, I am the same. Thinking of people as too kind, that's why I ended up in this situation. With that, Shui put his face in front of Itachi's, so that Itachi can clearly see his face, and also see his closed right eye. A trace of blood oozed out from the gap of his closed right eye. Because the amount of blood was very small, and Shui has been deliberately hiding his right eye from the alley to the basement, so it was not discovered by Itachi. But this time, Itachi can see it clearly. Shusui's right eye is no longer in his eye socket. Shui, how did your eye become like this? Itachi hurriedly asked anxiously. Shui is like a brother to him, but one of his eyes is missing. Someone must have deliberately dug out Shusui's right eye. Such a situation made the usually calm and steady Itachi can't help but ignite a burst of anger in his heart, and he wants to take revenge on the person who hurt Shui. The person who dug out my right eye, you know him. It's the leader of the Woodleaf Root, Shimura Danzo. Shusui's words are powerful, but they are like a heavy hammer hitting Itachi's head. Danzo? Itachi can't help but exclaim the name of Shimura Danzo. Many people think that the limit of the Sharingan is the 3 Tomo Sharingan, and even many clansmen think so. But the limit of the Sharingan is far from this. Above the 3 Tomo Sharingan, there is an eye that is close to the god's eye, Mangekyo Sharingan. Shui looked at Itachi with his remaining left eye, which is the 3 Tomo state of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. But in the red Sharingan, the Tomo spun faster and faster, and gradually merged together to form the shape of a 4-cornered pinwheel. Reaching out his hand and pointing to his eye, Shui said to Itachi, "This is my Mangekyo Sharingan." Mangekyo? Sharingan? Itachi's mouth also muttered this new state of the Sharingan. The right eye I lost was also a Mangekyo Sharingan, but it was taken away by Danzo. When Danzo took out my right eye, although my mind was fuzzy, I still vaguely heard some news. Although Danzo really wants to quell the rebellion of the Uchiha, Danzo's ultimate goal is to harvest our Uchiha's Kekkei Genkai, the Sharingan. Shui said these cruel facts, and Itachi's idea of using Danzo's power to quell the Uchiha's rebellion was completely eliminated. After all, Danzo doesn't care whether the Uchiha clan can survive or not. Instead, he wants the Uchiha clan to die, so that he can harvest more of the Uchiha clan's unique Sharingan. With such a purpose, how can he help Itachi to save the Uchiha clan? I also knew about this, that's why I tried my best to escape from Root's base. But I just happened to see Root's people take you to their base. I thought that Danzo will deceive you just like how he deceived me. I just want to tell you, whether it's the Uchiha clan or Woodleaf people, don't believe him, no matter how sincere he is in front of you. I also want to give you a gift. Gift. That's right. After saying that, Shisui stretched out his hand towards his only remaining left eye and dug it out. The bloody eye was placed in front of Itachi's eyes. My kaleidoscope's ability is a type of illusion called Koto Amitsukami. The only thing that can break this illusion is my remaining left eye. Koto Amitsukami is very scary. It can completely control a person without them knowing. Since my eyes have fallen into Danzo's hands, one day he will need to use this genjutsu. At this time, please use this eye of mine where it should be used. Chapter 123. Brother Shisui. Itachi looked at Shisui, who was standing in front of him, with a bloody scar on his handsome face. Where his eyes used to be, there were only 2 empty bone grooves left. If you really want to save the Uchiha clan, this is where we belong. In that case, you should keep this eye properly. Danzo will never let go of our Uchiha clan so easily, no matter what, no matter how bloody it is, no matter how hard it is for you to accept. You must keep the Uchiha bloodline alive, with this eye of mine, and with yourself. Shisui said very seriously, and Itachi also kept all these words in his heart. Shisui naturally saw the determination of his companion, who grew up with him, so he put his hand on Itachi's shoulder and said, "Promise me, stay strong and live. As long as you're alive, there's still hope. I entrusted my eyes to you, so I can't stay in Woodleaf anymore. Danzo will never give up on capturing me, so I have to leave temporarily. Brother Shisui, you have to take care of yourself. There's only hope if you're alive." Hearing Itachi's words, Shisui couldn't help but smile. This Itachi actually went back on his words. "Do you still need to worry about this kind of thing?" Shisui said to Itachi. But he still secretly asked himself in his heart, can he escape from Danzo's pursuit? He has lost his eyes, and the difficulty of escaping is too high. Shisui knew this, and Itachi naturally also knew this. But neither of them pointed it out. Whether it was Shisui, who was being chased by Danzo, or Itachi, who stayed in the Uchiha clan. Neither of them was 100% safe, and the two of them also faced all kinds of dangers. Now the two of them were just cheering each other on. "I'm leaving." Shisui didn't look at Itachi. Instead, he turned around and walked into the shadows. After a while, he disappeared, and Itachi still stood in the same place, looking at the direction Shisui left. "Brother Shisui, if possible, you must live well." "You must live well," Itachi said softly, then turned and left the basement. The light that was lit by Shisui just now quietly went out. "Lord 3 Generations, I hope to assist Woodleaf in quelling the Uchiha clan's rebellion." In the Hokage's office, Itachi was kneeling in front of the 3 generations of Hokage. "Did Danzo tell you about this?" 3 Generations asked Itachi. "Yes, Danzo-sama gave me some documents. And after my own investigation, the contents of these documents are all true." Itachi didn't hide anything from the 3 Generations. He directly told them about his conversation with Danzo. Looking at Itachi's face, Sandaime fell silent for a while. The Uchiha clan's intention to rebel was indeed a tricky matter because it involved a lot of Woodleaf interests. And how to appease it was also a problem. If only the main culprit was killed, it's hard to guarantee that some of the Uchiha clan's clansmen would hate it and breed a new rebellion. But if there was a massacre, it would lead to a counterattack by the Uchiha clan, which would greatly weaken the power of Woodleaf. This was also the reason why the 3 Generations opposed to directly attacking the Uchiha clan. "You go out first, I already know about the matter. If there is anything, I will look for you." 3 generations took a puff from the pipe in his hand and exhaled the smoke. He sighed and said to Itachi, "That's right. This was Itachi's choice to deal with Danzo. Since Danzo wanted to kill the Uchiha clan, then the 3 generations of Hokage who was equal or even stronger than Danzo was also dragged into the water. Once Danzo wanted to directly exterminate the Uchiha clan, then the 3 generations would be the biggest obstacle to stop Danzo from committing such an evil act. Just yesterday, the Uchiha clan received the information that the Uchiha clan's genius Uchiha Shursui was dead and his eyes were dug out. It was this news that made Itachi determined to have a showdown with the 3 generations of Hokage. Then, what do you want? After Itachi left, the 3 generations sat alone in his office, feeling a little irritable. Because Danzo actually carried out such a plan behind his back that involved the Uchiha clan. Although the Uchiha clan did such a thing, the 3 generations felt that Danzo was too eager, as if he was longing for something. I just hope you don't do anything to endanger the safety of the Woodleaf, otherwise I will have to personally suppress you. The 3 generations said. He couldn't help but think of his disciple Orochimaru, and his 2 disciples Jiraiya and Tsunade, who also escaped from the Woodleaf. If you were still here, I wouldn't have to work so hard. Looking at the large pile of documents in front of him and all kinds of annoying things. The 3 generations couldn't help but sigh. He could only take a deep breath of his pipe and bury himself in these documents and complicated things again. Just as the 3 generations suffered from all kinds of annoying things, Itachi was immersed in the complicated situation of Shursui's death and the Uchiha clan's rebellion. Nangong's house also ushered in an unexpected guest. A figure wearing a mask and a short black cloak suddenly appeared in the courtyard of his house opposite Nangong. Nangongja? The figure said to Nangongja. His tone was very low, like an emotionless machine. Umbu? Looking at the figure's dress and the mask on his face, Nangongja had a faint guess in his heart. And this kind of mechanical way of action is very similar to the root ninja that Nangongja once encountered when he cooperated with him on a mission. Would you please come with me? The figure did not care about Nangongja's guess and continued talking. Sorry, I have temporarily given up my identity as a ninja. So I won't go with you. If there's nothing else, please go back. Although Nangongja is not a root ninja, he knows very well in his heart. Anything that had to do with root was bound to involve bloody massacres and all sorts of conspiracies. And this kind of thing is exactly what Nangongja wants to avoid. It's better to avoid trouble. Nangongja bluntly refused the request of the root ninja and asked him to leave. I didn't expect Nangong Jonin to have such a temper, directly ignoring the request of my root ninja. In that case, I don't know if Nangong Jonin is ready to go against my root ninja's consciousness? A voice came from behind the root ninja, slightly old but with an extremely strong majestic aura. Chapter 124. The root ninja who was standing in front of Kuroto immediately stepped aside, revealing the person who just spoke behind him. His right eye was bandaged, and his right arm was also bandaged and hidden in a black coat. Although his face can't be said to be old, there are some wrinkles on it. He looks slightly younger than the 3 generations Hokage of the same generation. But his left eye has an indescribable gloominess, like the eyes of an eagle, and after being stared at, you will feel extremely uncomfortable. So it's the leader of Root, Shimura Danzo-sama. Nangongja naturally recognized the leader of Root, who is an important part of the Woodleaf Defense Force, Shimura Danzo, and then slightly bowed and said, "Greetings, Shimura Danzo-sama. I don't know why Shimura Danzo-sama sent such a small shrimp to invite me." Although he was slightly ridiculed by Nangongja, the root ninja who just talked to Nangongja didn't show any emotion at all. He just stood quietly beside Danzo without saying a word. But the muscles all over his body were tense, and obviously as long as Danzo gives the order, he will rush up and fight Nangongja to the death. Small shrimp. Danzo heard Nangongja's words and smiled, and then said to Nangongja, "Yes, maybe this subordinate of mine is not your opponent in a direct confrontation. But when did my root ninja become the strongest in a direct confrontation?" If it's not a direct confrontation, then isn't it an assassination? Indeed, whether it's the Umbu or Root, most of the time, they carry out assassination missions. Almost no one would do such a thing in a head-on battle that caused a lot of commotion. The Umbu are supposed to fight in the dark, right? What is the matter with Danzo-sama? Nangongja doesn't want to keep arguing with Danzo about who is the strongest, because it's meaningless. Nangongja also doesn't like to pretend to be polite, so he directly told Danzo about it. He wants to know what Danzo wants to do. My purpose. Danzo stared straight at Nangongja with his left eye and said, I want you, Woodleaf Jonin Nangongja, to join Root. Nangongja knows that Danzo must have a purpose for looking for him. But he didn't expect that Danzo wants Nangongja to join Root. Danzo-sama, don't you think you're taking things for granted? Nangongja said, although I'm not a high-ranking person in Konoha, I still have some influence in terms of combat power. Especially since I took over Kiba Ninja School, a lot of people know about me, and Danzo-sama directly came to recruit me. A lot of people won't be happy, right? Although Woodleaf seems very peaceful, there are actually a lot of hills. These hills won't directly fight with each other, but there are still all kinds of small conflicts. Naturally, Danzo was one of the more powerful ones among these mountain peaks. Once Nangongja joins Danzo's Root, there is no doubt that Danzo's Root will have a small increase in strength. Such a small improvement is very likely to directly break the weak balance between the mountains of Konoha, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, Root is not a good place. The members of the Umbu can leave the Umbu after meeting certain requirements and getting the approval of the Umbu head. However, Nangongja has never heard of anyone leaving the Umbu after joining Root. There is no big difference between joining Root and signing a contract to sell one's body. With Nangongja's character, how can he join Root? Not happy. Danzo heard Nangongja's words, and after repeating it with a little contempt, he continued, they are not happy, what does it have to do with me? Since I became the leader of Root, I have single-handedly led this new organization to grow up. In the process, how many people's interests have been violated? How many people are unhappy? But I am still alive and well, and Root is getting stronger and stronger. Those losers are unhappy, what can they do to me? Danzo indeed has something to be proud of. Because whether it is the Umbu or some other clans, they all relied on the legacy left by their ancestors and the efforts of several generations to develop. But Danzo can be said to have started from scratch and pulled up such a violent organization. There is no need to say more about the hardships, and Danzo's ability is naturally obvious. Danzo-sama is naturally very powerful to be able to establish Root single-handedly. But I am just an ordinary ninja, and now I am even a little tired of being a ninja. So I asked for an indefinite leave from Hokage-sama, and if I have nothing to do, I will go to the ninja school to teach children. Although it is dull, it is also very fun. Root is very powerful, but joining Root means that I'll have to start an endless slaughter. Although I am not the kind of super strong person who can suppress the ninja world, but I think I have the ability to protect myself and my family. So, I will not join Root. Danzo-sama, please go back. Nangongja was actually speaking from the bottom of his heart. From the beginning, Nangongja practiced martial arts so that he and his sister could join Woodleaf, so that their lives would not be so difficult. Although Nangongja participated in the ninja war, he also made a lot of contributions. But that is because Woodleaf has too many powerful people on top, and he is just an ordinary chunin. If he were to make any one of them unhappy, wouldn't he and his sister be crushed to death like ants? Therefore, Nangongja fought with all his might, trying his best to accumulate merits. Little by little, Nangongja's strength became stronger. Later, with the help of Leo and banishment, he became only half a step away from Kage level. Although this strength is not enough to crush everything, it is enough to ensure the safety of several people and survive in this war-torn world. Nangongja spent these years perfecting his swordsmanship and accompanying his family. Nangongja cherishes these days very much. He does not allow anyone to disturb their peace. Even if this person is the leader of Woodleaf's Root, Shimura Danzo. Nangongja is not afraid to fight with him. Nangongja, I didn't expect you to be such a man who is satisfied with the status quo. Longing for some beauty, longing for a moment of peace. But have you ever heard of a saying? After listening to Nangongja's words, Danzo didn't pursue the matter any further. He turned around and walked out of the door with his men. Only one sentence is still echoing in the air. The tree wants to be still, but the wind will not stop. You have joined Woodleaf and become a ninja. It means that you have stepped into a whirlpool that you will never be able to break free from. You will come to me. Chapter 125. Danzo left, but his words left a great shock in Nangongja's heart. Because Danzo's words were not without reason. In this chaotic world, there were too many things that were beyond one's control. Nangongja could be willful once, and he could be willful twice. But there would always be times when he could not solve it with his own strength. What should he do at that time? Should he continue to be so stubborn and willful? Nangongja did not know, and could only ponder at this moment. Suddenly, it was as if a light had suddenly appeared. Nangongja saw the Heaven's Tribulation sword that he had placed on the tribute platform. He thought of the person who had taught him for a long time, the person who he believed to be the #1 swordsman in the world, the master of the Heaven's Tribulation sword, banishment. Even if he had become a demon, even if he was despised by others, banishment had never changed his mind. Since he liked the sword, he would practice it well. Since he cherished his current life, he would do his best to protect everything he had. If he was not strong enough, then he would work hard to cultivate. Danzo's words were reasonable, but Nangongja was still very young and had a lot of potential. At this time, Nangongja might not be able to resist the fierce wind that wanted to disturb the tree, and he might not be able to defeat the thief with ulterior motives. But Nangongja's strength would not stop here, and it would only become stronger. Since it was not enough now, he would work 10 times harder, 100 times harder, 1,000 times harder, 10,000 times harder. One day, whether it was the fierce wind or the thief, they would all be insignificant things. Nangongja muttered to himself, "One day. If the wind wants to disturb me, I will use the sword in my hand to cut the wind. If someone wants to disturb me, I will use the sword in my hand to cut off their head." Nangongja walked with firm steps in front of his Heaven's Tribulation sword. Banishment Senior, one day, I will make myself worthy of being the master of the Heaven's Tribulation sword. Whether it is me or the Heaven's Tribulation sword, I will make their names resound throughout the heavens. Clang! Nangongja pulled out the Heaven's Tribulation sword from its scabbard. The sword's resonating sound was like a dragon's roar, and its aura soared to the heavens. Clouds. The sword light illuminated Nangongja's face, and Nangongja's face was also illuminated by sword light. In the Uchiha clan's land, Patriarch Uchiha Fugaku and the elders of the Uchiha clan were gathered here. Everyone's face was filled with anger and hatred. If someone saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. Are they still human? Why are they so frightening? Oops. You bullies. Xianxia uses as new. The desk let out an ear-piercing squeak. Uchiha Fugaku was burning with rage at this moment. Naturally, an ordinary desk would not be able to withstand the power that he had unleashed. A moment later, it collapsed with a loud crash. The books, papers, brushes, and ink on the desk were scattered on the ground at this moment. It was a complete mess. Just like the mood of the Uchiha clan, it was chaotic and irritable. Uchiha Shursui is a rare genius of our generation, and he has made a name for himself in the shinobi world. However, such a genius had actually died. His eyes were dug out and thrown into the river. If it weren't for the fact that part of our clan's land is bordered by this river, the clan guards would have found Shursue's body. We still don't know about this yet. But what about the Woodleaf? Woodleaf didn't say anything at all. The elders of Kiba, the 3 generations, and Danzo, those 2 bastards, are probably laughing at our genius's premature death. Uchiha Fugaku's words were somewhat inappropriate. One must know that the Uchiha clan's elders, the elders of Kiba, the three generations, and Danzo can be said to be people of the same era. Since the elders of Kiba are all old bastards, then is the Uchiha clan's elders also a member of the old bastards? Fugaku, calm down, you are the patriarch of the Uchiha clan. If you lose your calm at this time, then how can we make the right choice? Although the great elder was also very angry at this moment, he was still old. After all, he was different from the hot-blooded Uchiha Fugaku. The great elder had seen many things and suffered many grievances. Therefore, he still knew how to control his emotions and timely reminded Uchiha Fugaku. After being reminded by the great elder, Fugaku calmed down a little. He stretched out his hand, and a follower beside him handed a cup of tea to Fugaku. Not sure if it was because Uchiha Fugaku was too engrossed in shouting just now, but his throat was a little dry. He wanted to use this cup of tea to moisten his throat. That's right. In fact, Fugaku wasn't that angry, at least he didn't show it. After all, although Shursui was a genius, he wasn't in the same camp as Fugaku. In most cases, Shursui's relationship with the Uchiha elders was closer. This was also why the elders were so angry at this moment. Only a living genius was called a genius. And a dead genius was just a corpse. Fugaku was very clear about this point. And the elders didn't necessarily feel sorry for a genius like Shursui falling. Maybe they felt sorry for the precious resources they had invested in Shursui? But these words couldn't be said openly. If they said it, wouldn't it be a deliberate fallout? But no one thought that in fact, Shursui's value was huge. Because Shursui's original 3-tomo Sharingan had evolved into Mangekyo Sharingan. Not to mention that there was a powerful illusion like Kodo Amatsukami that could unknowingly control others. If Uchiha Fugaku and the elders knew about this, who knows how sad they would be that such a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan was lost. After Fugaku put on a show just now, it could be regarded as a slight comfort to the elders. At this time, it was time to talk about serious matters. Elders, although Uchiha is not as strong as when Woodleaf first built the village, no one can bully us. Fugaku stood up and looked at the members of the Uchiha clan sitting below him. Haha. Fugaku stood up and looked at the Uchiha clan's members. With his hands behind his back, Fugaku's eyes were shining. We want to prove to the world that Uchiha is still strong. If it wasn't for Senju Dakuma of the Senju clan, how could it be possible for a Senju clan ninja to take the power of Hokage? The pride of Uchiha doesn't allow us to bow down to others. This time, we will use the power of the whole clan. Overthrow the rule of the Senju clan over Woodleaf. Let Hyuga, Yuan Fei, Nara Yamanaka, or Rimikai, and all the people who support Hokage know that they have chosen the wrong person. They chose the wrong party to be loyal to. We, the Uchiha, are the real strongest clan in Konoha. We are the real ruler of Woodleaf. Uchiha Fugaku said, and he began to imagine himself wearing Hokage's Haori and wearing Hokage's hat, accepting the worship of all the ninjas and civilians of Woodleaf. It's really easy. Fast. People. Heart. Chapter 126. In the Hokage's office, the three generations were dealing with some daily documents, and from time to time they would frown for a moment. This is really an eventful time. The three generations couldn't help but sigh. Originally, ever since Danzo brought the news of the Uchiha clan's movements, the three generations have been a little restless, and at the same time, the Woodleaf defense team also found many changes in the barrier. After investigation, it has been confirmed that ninjas from outside the village have sneaked into the village, but after searching for a while there was no trace of them, which made them very upset. Reporting to Hokage-sama. Suddenly, a black figure appeared in front of the desk of the three generations. It was a member of the Umbu, and at the moment he was half kneeling in front of the three generations. What's the matter? After seeing this Umbu, the three generations faintly felt that something was wrong. This Umbu was specially sent by the three generations to supervise the Uchiha clan, and since this person came, then there must be something wrong with the Uchiha clan. Just now, the Uchiha clan's ninjas who are proficient in barrier techniques were secretly mobilized, and according to the tracking of the Umbu, Most of them are scattered in the Woodleaf defense team led by the Uchiha clan to patrol the Woodleaf village. And the frequency is very high. It is very likely that they are trying to figure out the pillars of the Woodleaf village. After the Umbu finished, he lowered his head and waited for the instructions of the 3 generations. Uchiha, I have spared you again and again, but you are still not willing to extinguish your evil intentions? The 3 generations also became a little angry, and he stretched out a hand to express his indignation. But suddenly, as if thinking of something, he asked the Umbu kneeling in front of him, even if the Uchiha clan is really disloyal, it is impossible for them to act so early. After all, they are still far from being prepared. So, what is the reason that angered the Uchiha clan's brute? Although the 3 generations didn't slap the table, but under the anger, it was inevitable that his mouth would not spare the Uchiha clan. The Umbu kneeling in front of the 3 generations seemed to recall some things when he was monitoring the village. Finally, he remembered some of the Uchiha clan's chatter that he occasionally heard. So he said to the 3 generations, because the Uchiha clan has a lot of powerful ninjas guarding the village, we can't directly go in to inquire the news. But occasionally, we heard a few people who left the Uchiha clan's place to leave. But the Uchiha's sure sway to the Uchiha clan's death's sure sway, Uchiha's sure sway, even with his eyes. After reporting it to Hokage-sama, they didn't get the result they wanted, so many elders and Uchiha Fugaku as the clan's patriarch are still brooding over this matter. The 3 generations' eyebrows were crooked with anger. Just because of a dead genius, this group of people would do such an irrational thing? If this was the case, Uchiha Fugaku wouldn't be the clan's patriarch, and a group of Uchiha elders wouldn't be able to hold the position of the clan's patriarch. Dissatisfied? Since when did Uchiha see himself as a member of the Woodleaf clan? Now that one of their own is dead, they want to push the blame on Woodleaf clan's head? Let Woodleaf clans take the blame? It's easy to think. The 3 generations couldn't help but snort coldly and then said, all of this is just a show for outsiders to see. Perhaps that Uchiha clansman who let you hear the news did it on purpose. With such news, although the Uchiha clan's rebellion is still not justified, at least there will be a last layer of fig leaf. Geniuses can only be called geniuses when they are alive. That's just a corpse. He wondered how Uchiha Fugaku would react if he heard that the 3 generations actually held the same view as him. After all, the 3 generations had always presented Woodleaf with an amiable side. Who would have thought that the 3 generations also had such a cold and ruthless side? However, if Tua hadn't been so cold-blooded in the 3 generations, he wouldn't have been able to get the position of Hokage. In the past, Danzo had great ambitions for the position of Hokage, but even a cautious and ruthless person like Danzo lost in the hands of the 3 generations. Go and tell Danzo and Itachi Uchiha to come to the Hokage's office, but remember to tell them not to reveal themselves. Come quietly, it's time to beat some people who dare to come out. If a big tree doesn't occasionally trim its branches and leaves, it can't become tall and towering. The Umbu under the seat bowed his head and softly answered, and then disappeared. Only the 3 generations were left standing in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window of the Hokage's office, looking at the Uchiha clan's land in the distance. Their eyes were deep, making people shudder with fear. Danzo, what are you planning? Nangongjou was sitting at home. He still didn't understand why Danzo came to recruit him this time. When Danzo appeared, in fact, Nangongjou was already prepared to have a good fight with Danzo and his men. But he didn't expect Danzo to leave after saying a few harsh words. Although Danzo's words were indeed very lethal, it also made Nangongjou very restless at that time. But it was limited to this. To use such a few words to move Nangongjou was too far away. Nangongjou always felt that when Danzo left, he felt like he had seen through him. His weakness? Nangongjou. Mashiro. Little linger. That's right, it must be like this. Root always did things unscrupulously. Kidnapping and blackmailing was the lowest level of behavior. It seems like during this period of time, I can't let those annoying flies continue to fly around my house. Nangong's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness and even a trace of excitement. He had sealed his sword for 3 years and hadn't used it. 3 years of killing intent, 3 years of sword energy, were all brewing in his chest. He was only waiting for the day when the killing intent would erupt and let the calamity sword show its power. As he spoke, Nangongja had already picked up the calamity sword beside him. Today, it's time to let those people see how powerful I am, so that they won't disturb my life. Nangongja exerted force with his ankle and shot up into the sky from his house's corridor. The huge force was clearly enough to make a person fly into the sky, but it didn't leave a single mark on the fragile wooden floor. There was an ancient saying, 3 years of silence, one amazing the world with a single brilliant feat. 3 years of silence, one soars to the heavens. If he hadn't killed anyone for 3 years, would his killing intent be overflowing? Chapter 127. The fresh blood spurted out from the body of a man in black in front of Nangongja, dyeing the ground red. 18th one. Nangongja swung the long sword in his hand. The blood on the sword fell onto the trunk of a nearby tree due to the centrifugal force. The blood flowed down the tree like the water of the Three Roads River, marking the loss of a life. This was the 18th person Nangongja killed today for spying on his family. Nangongja didn't care which faction this person belonged to, nor did he care what kind of impact this person's death would cause. The reason was simple. Since they only sent one person to spy on Nangongja secretly, this proved that this faction didn't have the ability to directly deal with Nangongja, or rather, they didn't place their focus on Nangongja. Since that was the case, he killed him. For Nangongja, this was a short opportunity to show off his strength. Since there were people who wanted to kill him, wouldn't he be letting them down if he didn't reap their lives? Nangongja was still dressed in black. He carried the black calamity sword and walked into the courtyard of his house. Although Nangongja had tried his best to retract his murderous aura and hostility, it still leaked out a little, making people feel that there was a gloomy aura around him. Brother? Nangongja suddenly poked his head out of the house and saw Nangongja, who had just walked into the courtyard. His small nose twitched slightly, and he immediately noticed a thin but still detectable smell of blood. Coupled with the long sword in Nangongja's hand and the cold aura that lingered around his body, Nangongro could easily guess what Nangongja had just done. After living with his sister for so many years, even if his sister didn't speak, Nangongja could sense that his sister wanted to ask what had happened. Therefore, without waiting for his sister to speak, he took the lead and spoke first. In the afternoon, the leader of Woodleaf Root, Danzo, came. He said a lot of things that I didn't understand and wanted to pull me into his roots to work for him. But when I refused, this guy didn't bother me at all and just left. There were no good people in Root, not to mention the leader of Root, Danzo. So, just in case, I got rid of all the people around our house who were sent by someone to spy on us. Don't go to Kiba Hospital for the next few days. Take a long leave. I've been at home for so long, but I haven't seen anyone come to recruit me. Even someone like Danzo is trying to recruit me. Something must have happened. Nangongro nodded. She knew that what her brother said made sense. Therefore, he didn't say much. But at this moment, there was a knock on Nangongja's door. Nangongro opened the door and found that it was Yachue standing at the door. Yabuki, what's wrong? At this moment, Yachue was panting as she held onto Nangongja's door frame. Obviously, there was something urgent. Nangongro quickly asked. It's Mishiro. Mishiro is missing. Yachue was panting, but she still said the reason why she rushed to Nangongja's house. Yabuki, don't worry. Explain the situation to us first. What's going on? Nangongja also knew that Yachue wouldn't say such things without any basis. Since Yabuki said that Mishiro was missing, then something must have happened to Mishiro. The more it was like this, the more he couldn't be anxious. Nangongja quickly welcomed Yachue into his living room. It's like this. Originally, I was responsible for looking after the store in the afternoon. Mishiro's sister looked after the store in the morning. But because Sakura didn't seem to be feeling well, I discussed with Mishiro to look after the store for the day. Mishiro also agreed. But when I accompanied Sakura to the hospital and was about to bring Mishiro to my house for dinner, I found that Mishiro wasn't in the store. I asked the staff, and they said that Mishiro was called out by someone wearing an umbu uniform not long ago. After that, he didn't come back. I knew that things were bad. So I came to tell you that something happened to Mishiro. Yachue seemed to be anxious as she couldn't even speak smoothly. But Nangongji and Nangong-ro clearly understood what Yachue meant. That was, Mishiro was taken away by the umbu and there was no news of him until now. Only a few of those who were taken away by the dark group were able to return safely. So Yachue immediately came to find Nangongji, hoping that Nangongji would have a way to solve this matter. Umbu uniform, kidnap, close people? Nangongji murmured. Such a way of doing things and dressing up reminded him of the infamous root group's way of doing things. What's more, Danzo had previously tried to recruit Nangongji but was rejected. It wasn't unreasonable for them to kidnap Mishiro. And Nangong-ro also knew that this matter might be related to Root. For a moment he became a little anxious. Brother, little Linger isn't home. Could it be? Nangong-ro didn't continue, but Nangongji still understood what his sister meant. Since Root could kidnap Mishiro, then it was naturally possible for them to kidnap little Linger. Nangong-ro was probably working at Kiba Hospital today, so Danzo couldn't directly barge into the hospital to kidnap her. And two close people were enough to threaten Nangongji, so Nangong-ro wasn't that important. Nangongji's body instantly emitted a thick murderous aura. Today, Nangongji was already annoyed by Danzo and even killed 18 people who were spying on his house. However, he was still one step behind Danzo. Mishiro and little Linger were most likely already captured. In this situation, even if Nangongji was kind-hearted, he couldn't resist the urge to kill. And Nangongji wasn't a particularly friendly person, right? Go to Kakashi's house now. These few days, Kakashi didn't have any missions, so he stayed at home. With Kakashi's strength, he can still guarantee your safety. Nangongji looked at his sister and said calmly, "What about you, brother?" Nangong-ro couldn't help but ask. But just as the words left her mouth, Nangong-ro had already guessed her brother's answer. "I'm going to pick up Mishiro and little Linger. No matter who it is, anyone who dares to threaten me and treat the people close to me like this cannot be forgiven." Although Nangongji was still speaking very calmly, his anger was already burning fiercely. "Liang, protect me." Nangongji finally shouted out these words. A layer of black armor slowly covered Nangongji's body. "Ha, kid, it's already been 3 years. I haven't fought for 3 years, and I can't hold it in anymore. Today, I'll let those little guys see what we're capable of." Li Yang's voice sounded again. Her loud roar echoed in Nangongji's mind, as if she had just been freed from her restraints. "I've sealed my sword for 3 years, and now I see blood. 18 lives, that's still far from enough. Since they came to provoke me, I'll let them know what it means to be filled with killing intent." Chapter 128. Yabuki, don't go anywhere. Go to Kakashi's place with Ro. Since Root caught Mishiro and little Linger, then everyone I care about and close to is facing danger. Shinakushina has 3 generations watching over her. No one dares to touch her. But you are different. You have to be careful. Nangongji's body was covered with the black armor that he had not worn for a long time. His head was also covered by the armor. A slightly strange voice came out from the black armor. Although Yachue had not seen Nangongji wearing the black armor, it was not the time to pay attention to such small matters. Yachue nodded, indicating that she understood Nangongji's intention. "Roa, come here." Nangongji waved at Nangong-ro, allowing Nangong-ro to come to his side. Then, he placed his hand on Nangong-ro's shoulder, and a soft voice was transmitted to Nangong-ro's ears. "I have already left a mark on your body, just in case. Don't tell anyone, okay?" Then he raised his voice and said, "I'm leaving. Wait until I bring back Mishiro and little Linger, Then we will discuss how to solve this matter. At this moment, Yachue, who was standing at the side, stared at Nangong's hand that was on Nangong's shoulder. No one knew what she was thinking. Nangongzhe exerted strength in his legs and left his house at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, he had disappeared without a trace. Although I know that you are anxious to save them, do you know where their base is? Although I don't know how strong Root is, this kind of organization that specializes in dirty work is not easy to find, right? Li Yang was very strange. Nangongzhe's behavior was not like the Nangongzhe she knew. Although the Nangongzhe of the past knew that someone close to him was kidnapped, he would definitely be furious. However, he would never be so angry and irrational as he was now. However, Li Yang was a familiar beast that was connected to Nangongzhe's life. Nangongzhe's mental state was actually very calm. But there was definitely something wrong with acting so agitated. Li Yang did not know Nangongzhe's plan, but she still cooperated with Nangongzhe's act. It's very simple, because the one who came to my house and told me that Mashiro is missing is not the real Yabuki. Nangongzhe stopped running and looked around. He knew that he had run far away. Therefore he stopped and said slowly, Did she think that she could fool me just because she acted like Yabuki? When Yabuki panted in front of my house, I felt that something was wrong. Because I was very clear about Yabuki's stamina, although she did not usually show it. But just the distance from the clothing store to my house was not enough for Yabuki to be panting like this. After that, Yabuki told me and Ruro about how she found out that Mashiro was kidnapped. Although it was logical, I still faintly felt that something was wrong. So I deliberately pretended to be angry in front of her. If it was the usual Yabuki, she would definitely try to calm me down. But this person seemed to want me to leave immediately and did not try to stop me. When I called Ruro, I specifically used Roa, a nickname that I would not normally use. If it was the Yabuki who was familiar with us, even if she did not notice it, she would subconsciously have some reaction. But this person did not react at all, as if that was how I should call Roa. After that, I pressed on Ruro's shoulder. That person also kept staring at my hand. It seems that she also thought that I left a mental imprint on Ruro's body. Although she tried her best to make it hard for others to notice her gaze, I have been trying to let natural energy enter my body to strengthen my body after I was able to use it. Therefore, I could still feel the gaze from him. There are already so many suspicious points. Is it not enough for me to think that this person is not the real Yabuki? Nangongzhe said his conjecture, but there was something that he did not say. That was, after he saw this person, he felt a surge of blood in his heart. This kind of feeling made Nangongzhe feel that there was something fishy. He left behind a sense of caution in everything he did. I didn't think that you would grow so much in these 3 years. Hearing Nangongzhe's words, Li Yang also felt that Nangongzhe had indeed grown a lot. In this kind of place where you don't know when the enemy will take your head, this kind of caution is necessary. Then what are we going to do now? Li Yang continued to ask after praising Nangongzhe. After all, since Nangongzhe dared to let Nangongzhe stay with the fake Yachue, he naturally had a plan, right? It's very simple. Wait. The imprint I left on Ruro's body is not 1, but 2. The methods to isolate the aura can only isolate the spiritual imprint on the surface. On the deeper imprint, I added a wisp of my own sword energy. No matter how I isolate it, it can't cut off the connection between me and my sword energy. Even if the fake Yachue endangers Ruro's life, the sword energy will explode. Let's directly kill that person. Nangongzhe said calmly, but in fact he was still a little worried. If it wasn't for Mashiro and Little Linger being taken to God knows where by this group of root ninjas, he wouldn't take such a risk and do something that might harm his sister. Although he made thorough preparations, Nangongzhe still felt a little sorry for his sister. That Yabuki. Shall we go to Kakashi's house now and find Kakashi? Nangongzhe looked at Yachue who was standing beside her and asked. There was still some worry on her face. It was unknown whether she was worried about Mashiro and Little Linger or her brother. Kakashi's house? We don't need to go to Kakashi's house. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Yachue's face, making people feel very scared. Her hands suddenly formed a contact transformation technique, and smoke instantly rose from Yapui's body. Soon, the smoke dissipated, revealing a ninja wearing umbu attire and a chameleon mask. You should come with us directly to Root. Let's see how much your brother cares about you. Will he join Root for you? Several shadows jumped over the wall of Nangong's house and instantly surrounded Nangong Ro. Several people came forward and tied Nangong Ro tightly with ropes, and one of them took out a talisman and stuck it on Nangong Ro's body. Every Root ninja was immersed in the joy of completing the mission, but no one noticed that Nangong Ro's mouth had a trace of a smile. Chapter 129. Nangongja suddenly raised his head, apparently noticing something. They have already subdued Ro, and blocked my mark. Nangongja didn't wait for Nangong Ro's answer. He directly moved to the place where Nangong Ro's mark sensed. Several Root ninjas felt that it wasn't easy to make Nangongja ignore his sister's safety. After subduing Nangong Ro, they quickly rushed to their destination. As for where Nangongja went, in fact, the Root ninjas didn't care at all. Because even if Nangongja found the Hokage, he wouldn't know where the Root headquarters is located. Let's try to hurry up and hand over Nangong Ro to Sama. Only then can we be considered to have completed this mission. The Root ninja with the chameleon mask said to his subordinates who were escorting Nangong Ro. The Root ninjas also knew that once Nangongja reacted, it would be difficult for them to complete their mission. Therefore, they all sped up their journey. The surrounding trees turned into afterimages, and the Root ninjas were rushing, while Nangongja was far behind. They stopped. Nangongja suddenly found that the people who were with Nangong Ro had stopped moving, and he knew that he had arrived at the place he was looking for. Nangongja naturally couldn't let Nangong Ro fall into the hands of the enemy, so he immediately sped up and caught up with the Root ninjas who were holding Nangong Ro. You guys? Let her go, and I can consider leaving your bodies intact. Nangongja suddenly appeared in front of the Root ninjas, and then said with a calm and cold face. How is this possible? We clearly used the best talisman to isolate Nangong Ro's aura. How did you find her so quickly? The chameleon mask ninja saw Nangongja's figure and was shocked. The chameleon mask Root had seen Nangongja's information before. Naturally, he recognized that the person covered in black armor with a lion figure was the Nangongja that he thought he had successfully deceived. In order to prevent Nangongja from discovering Nangong Ro's whereabouts, the talisman used by the chameleon mask Root to seal Nangong Ro's presence was a high-grade talisman from the Root's collection. Even a shadow tier wouldn't be able to discover the presence of something sealed by a talisman. Even if Nangongja was strong, he was far from being a tier ninja. Otherwise, Danzo wouldn't use this method to try to control Nangongja. I say. Nangongja suddenly sped up. The black armor on his body began to glow with black lightning, rolling over it. The lightning was like a dragon bathing in the sea of clouds, roaming freely. At the same time, Nangongja's speed sharply increased under the stimulation of the lightning. He arrived behind the two Root ninjas who were holding Nangong Ro. He didn't even think about it as he swiftly cut off the heads of the two ninjas with his sword. I'm not a villain, why are you talking nonsense with me? Why don't I just kill you directly? I need to explain a little bit. Nangongja paused for a moment, and at the same time, he arrived behind the other Root ninjas. It was still a simple move, and the heads of the Root ninjas who were trained by Danzo, who were known as the Woodleaf Guardians, fell to the ground. His figure flashed a few times, and only the chameleon mask ninja was still standing in the same place. The other Root ninjas were all killed by Nangongja. Nangongja stood in front of the chameleon mask ninja, and the black sword with a trace of blood was directly pointed at the chameleon mask ninja's forehead. Are you stupid or am I stupid? You! The chameleon mask ninja just opened his mouth to say something, but Nangongja had already pierced his head with his sword. You want to talk? Sorry. Looking at the chameleon mask ninja on the ground, Nangongja picked his ears, and glanced at his black sword that was covered with some yellow and white filth, and said with some disgust, You made my sword so dirty, who has time to listen to you? Little gecko. Nangong Ro had originally come to watch her brother slaughter everyone. Furthermore, she had seen so many people being beheaded and lying not far from her. Nangong Ro also felt a little uncomfortable, but when she heard Nangongja actually said that the chameleon masked ninja was a gecko, she couldn't help but interrupt. Brother, he's a chameleon. Nangongja stared blankly at the mask of the root ninja that he had just pierced through with his sword. Chameleon? Gecko? Aren't they similar? They're both lizards. Brother, you gave me so many things to complain about. Do you want me to complain to my heart's content? I'm not a complaining slave, hey. Okay, it was certain that at this moment, Nangong Ro was slightly enraged. After saying so many strange things, Nangongja also knew that this was not a good time to talk to his sister. Thus, he hurriedly changed the topic and said, Okay, these things should wait until I rescue Mashiro and Little Linger before going back to talk about it. Obviously, Nangong Ro also knew that now was not the time to complain, so she nodded and indicated that these things could wait until everyone returned home to slowly educate her stupid brother. Liang, can you build a stable space channel now? Nangongja suddenly asked Li Yang, who was connected to his life. Of course, these 3 years I haven't been doing nothing, okay? You're preparing to… Li Yang immediately answered Nangongja's question. That's right, I already feel that Woodleaf is completely unsafe now. It's safer to first send Ruru to the alternate dimension where the Lion clan resides. After rescuing Mashiro and Little Linger, I will also send them to the alternate dimension. When the situation in Woodleaf stabilizes, I will bring them back. But, brother, after listening to Nangongja's words, Nangong Ro suddenly walked to Nangongja's side. She just opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but Nangongja's serious look made her swallow her words. This matter is not negotiable. I love you very much, but I hope that you can be safe and sound. This is also the reason why I didn't agree to let you sign up as a combat ninja, but instead let you become a medical ninja. Nangong Ro looked at her brother and listened to her brother's words. For a while, she couldn't find any reason to refute her brother because Nangongja's words were indeed reasonable. With Nangongja's character, he would never let himself fall into any kind of dangerous situation. So she could only lower her head and remain silent. Nangongja gently placed his black armored hand on Nangong Ro's head. Just as he was about to rub his sister's head, Nangong Ro suddenly stopped him. But he found that he couldn't touch his sister's head with his armor, so he could only take back his hand. He inserted the Tribulation Sword into the ground. Under Li Yang's control, the lightning on the black armor slowly surged. Following the direction of the Tribulation Sword, it flowed to the ground like water and slowly formed a space shuttle formation. Chapter 130. Soon, the array composed of black lightning slowly stabilized. The light wasn't as dazzling as before, and it was engraved on the ground with a faint glow. Ro, go to the Lion Tribe's alternate dimension first. I've already told Li Yang to inform his descendant in the alternate dimension. It's a little lion called Arthur. He'll take good care of you. I'll quickly rescue Mashiro and Little Linger and meet you in the alternate dimension. Nangongja looked at his sister and said. Nangong Ro looked at her brother. She didn't want to leave her brother's side and let him face a colossus like Root alone. However, Nangong Ro knew that with her little strength, she couldn't help Nangongja much. She might even be a burden. Rather than that, she might as well go to a safe place and wait for Nangongja to find her. Although waiting was torturous, Nangong Ro would rather suffer than add trouble to her brother. Okay. Nangong Ro's voice was a little soft, as if she was trying her best to suppress her emotions. He wanted to make a rational decision, so he slowly walked into the magic array. However, the moment the formation was activated, Nangong Ro suddenly turned her head and looked at her brother. The faintly discernible voices were clearly transmitted into Nangongja's ears. You have to come back alive. Nangongja didn't know what to say because when the words came out of Nangong Ro's mouth, Nangong Ro's eyes were also filled with hot tears. Facing his sister's tears, Nangongja couldn't bring himself to harden his heart. However, Mishiro and Little Linger were also his family. They were family that he had decided to protect. Home was never a physical location. Instead, it was a group of people who tolerated each other, protected each other, and lived together. Only when he, Nangong Ro, Mishiro, and Little Linger were together could it be considered a complete family. Nangong Ro's figure disappeared into the array. Nangong knew that his sister no longer had anything to worry about. His only goal now was to rescue Mishiro and Little Linger. After that, he would cultivate properly and strengthen Mishiro, Nangong Ro, and Little Linger. No matter how powerful he was, he couldn't split himself up. He was different from those ninjas. He didn't know any jutsu like cloning technique. If he was alone, then he had to make sure that Mishiro, Nangong Ro, and Little Linger had enough strength before he could be at ease. He had been too confident in himself before. How is it? Did you find anything like an entrance? Nangong asked Li Yang. After all, the most important thing now was to rescue Mishiro and Little Linger. Everything else could be put aside for the time being. But generally, this kind of secret base would have some kind of array protecting it. Nangong wasn't very proficient in this kind of thing. He could only rely on Li Yang's experience to solve this array. I think I know what kind of array this is. Li Yang snorted and then said her opinion and judgment. Although this array is different from the ones in my time, the basic principle is still the same. That is, by artificially changing the landscape, flowers, and trees to attract natural energy between heaven and earth, as well as all kinds of elemental energy to achieve the goal of the person who built the array. Therefore, there were some things that remained the same no matter how many changes there were. This array is the same. I found that the main function of this array is to attract natural energy to achieve concealment, illusion, and some offensive effects. So, I've already thought of a solution. How am I supposed to deal with such a formation? Nangong hurriedly asked when he heard Li Yang's explanation. He even said that he already knew how to break the formation. It's actually very simple. Because you are the best person to solve this array. There are several centers in the array that are used to circulate and regulate natural energy. Only the regulated energy can be used by the array. Once the regulated energy is gone, the array will become unstable. If the energy was too unstable, it would cause the entire formation to collapse. You can use the Calamity Sword to communicate with natural energy. For the past few years, you have been trying to directly use natural energy in your body. So, your sensitivity to natural energy is beyond ordinary people. Even I can't compare to you. Now, as long as you carefully feel the natural energy, you will be able to find the centers used to regulate it. As long as we can destroy these centers, it is equivalent to breaking the array. Nangong didn't understand this kind of thing, but Li Yang explained it so clearly. Nangong also felt that this was the best and fastest solution, so he nodded and closed his eyes to concentrate. A cool feeling began to rise from the back of Nangong's head. At first, it drifted upwards, but gradually seeped into Nangong's brain. For a moment, Nangong felt that his 5 senses were greatly improved. The cool feeling seemed to know that it couldn't do much in Nangong's brain, so it left a part of its energy to maintain the state of Nangong's brain. It followed the spine all the way down, and scattered into several small streams of energy that flowed into Nangong's organs. Then, just like the brain, when the optimization of the organs reached a stable state, the cool feeling gathered again. The cool energy gathered again and slowly entered Nangong's meridians. It combined with the internal energy that originally existed in Nangong's meridians, and flowed along Nangong's meridians to his 4 limbs. Bit by bit, it stimulated Nangong's potential. Although it took a long time, the process was actually very fast. It was faster than the blink of an eye. The most obvious change on Nangong's body was the appearance of a silver pattern on Nangong's forehead. Although it looked like a few ordinary lines, it didn't look very eye-catching. It wasn't even that conspicuous under the sun, but if one were to seriously and carefully look at the silver patterns on Nangong's spiritual palace, they would involuntarily feel a wave of dizziness. It was as if the lines weren't simple lines, but were formed by many difficult-to-see runes gathered together to form a line. A few lines formed the pattern on Nangong's forehead. This was Nangong's immortal mode. It was the true state after the natural energy was integrated into his body. It was also the key to breaking the formation. Chapter 131. Open! Nangongja muttered in his heart, and the silver mark on his forehead emitted a faint light. A few simple lines contained countless runes that were slowly moving, indicating that the runes were being activated. The boundless natural energy that was distributed between heaven and earth turned into small green light spots in front of Nangongja's eyes. The area in front of Nangongja that was supposed to be covered by a magic circle had turned into a magic circle formed by a river of green light spots. In the magic circle, the intersection of some of the green rivers had turned into a small lake of green light spots. This should be the center of the magic circle that Liang mentioned, and also the key to the operation of the magic circle. Liang, I have found the center of the magic circle that you mentioned. Do we just need to destroy them one by one? Nangongja asked Liang, who had transformed into his black armor. Of course, as long as the central point is destroyed. If the center of the magic circle is destroyed, the magic circle will exist in name only. Nangongja nodded, and the black armor on his body began to surge with lightning. Slowly, the lightning energy became more and more active, and Nangongja's body magically left the ground and floated up an inch. What are you doing? Liang saw Nangongja's strange behavior and couldn't help but ask. Since we are destroying the nodes, why don't we just destroy them once in a while? Nangongja said as if it was a matter of fact. Shouldn't we destroy the nodes one by one, then sneak into Root's headquarters to rescue Mashiro and Little Linger? Although Liang had always been arrogant and violent, he was exceptionally meticulous when doing things. While achieving his goal, he had to pay the smallest price. Nangongja's current behavior made Liang feel that it didn't conform to his standards. It's very simple. I will use the lightning energy on the black armor to float in the air temporarily and destroy the entire magic circle. Nangongja said matter-of-factly. Liang, who was in his black armor, was dumbfounded. But won't this attract more enemies? It's not worth it. Liang said hurriedly, as if she wanted to stop Nangongja from doing such a dangerous thing. This time, the goal was obviously to rescue Mashiro and Little Linger who were captured, so there was no need to mobilize a large number of root ninjas. However, Nangongja shook his head. He continued to stimulate the lightning energy on his black armor so that he could ascend even higher. You can't escape. I've worked with root ninjas before, so I know what kind of people they are. Each of them is a member of the huge machine that is Root. They don't care about the life or death of their fellow root ninjas. Previously, they had specially sent a small team to lure me away from Ruru's side and capture Ruru. Root must have given them a fixed time to carry out the mission. Once they exceed the time limit, Root will automatically think that their mission has failed. Moreover, they must make all preparations to prevent the enemy from invading. In order to not let Ruru fall into danger, I killed the root ninjas as soon as possible. During this time, it's very likely that they have exceeded the time limit set by root ninjas. We can't gamble with our own safety on the enemy's reaction speed. Since Root wants to use Mashiro and Little Linger's lives to threaten me, then at least they won't kill Mashiro and Ruru before I'm completely on the opposite side of Root and can't be controlled. With Danzo's arrogant personality, even if I directly attack Root's headquarters, it will only make him want to recruit me more. Mashiro and Little Linger's lives will also be guaranteed. This is actually a disguised form of showing my strength, to let Danzo and the entire Wood Leaf know if my strength is worth provoking. Nangongja said very clearly, very clearly. It also made Liang feel that Nangongja was already different from the youth she taught little by little. At the beginning, Nangongja's experience and methods were actually imitating Liang's habits to a certain extent. But now, with the rise of Nangongja's strength and the increase of various things he experienced, the current Nangongja has formed his own way of dealing with people. Although this is very good, Li Yang couldn't help but hide a slight trace of loneliness in her heart. In Li Yang's eyes, Nangongzhe was a junior that she watched grow up step by step. Although when he was weak, Li Yang was worried that he would be in danger. But now that Nangongzhe has become such a mature and independent person, the loneliness and melancholy of her own child finally growing up and becoming independent will not disappear for a long time. Since you've already thought it through so clearly, then do things according to your ideas. Although Li Yang's heart was filled with all kinds of complicated emotions, she still said this to Nangongzhe. Nangongzhe also nodded and focused on what he was doing now. Now that Nangongzhe was about 20 meters above the forest, the situation below could be seen clearly. Nangongzhe could also see the natural energy nodes through the emblem in his heart, especially clearly. Nangongzhe held his tribulation sword upside down in front of him and slowly let go of the sword in his hand. The tribulation sword was not pulled down by gravity, but it was suspended in front of Nangongzhe. The sword qi in his body constantly poured into the tribulation sword, turning into a sharp sword qi that was as sharp as a sword's edge. It gathered around Nangongzhe. In the beginning, the sword qi that was born was very slow, but slowly, more and more sword qi appeared. The outline of the sword qi gradually became clearer, and it was a divine dragon. Head like a camel, horns like a deer, eyes like a rabbit, ears like a cow, neck like a snake, belly like a snake, scales like a carp, claws like an eagle, and palms like a tiger. It was different from the sword qi dragon that Nangongzhe unconsciously formed when Nine Tails attacked the village. Instead, it formed a lifelike divine dragon that kept circling around. Nangongzhe was at the reverse scale of the sword qi dragon. Since he wanted to show off his muscles, he naturally had to let this group of ninjas see the strength of an internal force cultivator. The sword qi dragon that had once fought Nine Tails head-on was the best choice. Originally, it was just a sword qi dragon with a slight dragon shape, but it was already able to fight against the nine-tailed sword qi. Then, how powerful would this fully formed sword qi dragon be? Chapter 132. Nangongzhe's sword qi dragon was now completely formed. At this moment, the sword qi dragon exuded a dragon's aura that was different from any other aura. Originally, in a dense forest, Nangongzhe could still hear the chirping of cicadas and birds from time to time. However, when the sword qi dragon was formed, the voices seemed to have been frightened. Not a single sound could be heard. The catastrophe sword, which was originally floating in front of Nangongzhe, began to slowly move up to the mouth of the sword qi dragon. Endless sword qi was emitted from the catastrophe sword, wrapping the catastrophe sword into a ball. It turned into a dragon pearl in the sword qi dragon's mouth. Very good. Nangongzhe sensed the state of the sword qi dragon that he had condensed. He felt that the sword qi dragon was now the most perfect he could do. If he wanted to strengthen the sword qi dragon even more, he might have to break through the threshold of the so-called shadow level. Nangongzhe, who was floating in the air above the forest, looked at the formation below. His eyes revealed a slight seriousness and he shouted, "Go!" The dragon pearl formed by the catastrophe sword began to rush towards one of the central points, and the sword qi dragon followed closely behind. Although the sword qi dragon already had the shape of a dragon, Nangongzhe could not completely control it as he wished. Therefore, he relied on the dragon pearl formed by the catastrophe sword to aim and track the target. This was a big weakness of the sword qi dragon. The charging time was a little long, and the method to lock onto the enemy was a little complicated. This caused this move to not be able to play its greatest role in a one-on-one battle. This sword qi dragon was actually more suitable to be used on the battlefield as a strategic weapon. After all, there were many people on the battlefield. Even if the catastrophe sword was not used to guide the sword qi dragon, the sword qi dragon would still be able to display great power. The energy lake formed by the natural energy condensed through the central point was not a particularly strong existence. Instead, it was a little too weak. When the sword qi dragon rushed towards the natural energy lake under the guidance of the dragon pearl's head had just touched the lake when the lake was washed away. The natural energy that was washed away did not dissipate into the world. Instead, it turned into a fluorescent light that replenished the Sword Chi Dragon and the Catastrophe Sword. That's right, the natural energy was absorbed by the Sword Chi Dragon and the Catastrophe Sword that was released by Nangongxia. This time, 80% of the energy was replenished by their Sword Chi Dragons, while 20% flowed into the Heavenly Tribulation Sword. This was the result after Nangongxia's calculation. Because of the Catastrophe Sword Chi Dragons had a very close relationship with the natural energy. To the natural energy Sword Chi Dragon Sword, S Sword Xianxia, S own Sword Chi Dragon Pearl Sword. To the Sword Chi's Key to the Sword, to the Sword. Nangongxia specifically chose this central point with the smallest natural energy lake among the 36 central points. In fact, it's to let the Sword Chi Dragon absorb more natural energy and become more powerful. This time, the Sword Chi Dragon absorbed the natural energy lake's energy and strengthened by almost 20%. The remaining natural energy lakes have more and more natural energy than the previous one. If all the natural energy lakes are absorbed, then the Sword Chi Dragon Pearl will be at least 5 times stronger than it is now. It can be said that this Sword Chi Dragon Pearl has already surpassed the strongest summon beast in the world. Since I spent so much natural energy to build this Sword Chi Dragon Pearl, I naturally have to make it more valuable. Nangongxia felt the strength of the Sword Chi Dragon Pearl and began to calculate the strength of the Sword Chi Dragon Pearl after absorbing all the natural energy lakes. However, after the Sword Chi Dragon Pearl destroyed the natural energy lakes, it still inevitably hit the ground. As one of the guardian forces of the wood leaf, Root naturally discovered the abnormality outside their base and quickly sent people to check the situation. What the group of Root ninjas saw at this moment was a Sword Chi Dragon Pearl with a blue luster surging on the ground. If you want to describe it, there is a sentence that might be more appropriate. The heavens and earth turn, the earth dragon rises from the ground. The Sword Chi Dragon Pearl looked like it was surging in the waves, raging on the ground. From time to time, ear-piercing sounds like the clashing of swords could be heard. It made everyone's head dizzy. Captain, isn't that the strange dragon pearl that appeared in the sky when the 9 tails attacked the village? A Root ninja saw the sword energy dragon and couldn't help but recall the time when the QB attacked the village. He fought with the QB for a long time and fought with the QB for a long time. Sword Chi Dragon Pearl. The captain muttered to himself. It seems that the squad really failed in their mission. Nangongxia has already found them. I will go inside and inform Danzo-sama. You guys keep an eye on this Nangongxia. After saying this, the captain turned around and wanted to enter the Root base. But a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the Root base. It was a person with a wrapped right eye and a right hand wrapped in black clothes. The person who came is the leader of the wood leaf root, Shimura Danzo. Looking at Nangongxia's powerful appearance at the moment, Danzo's mouth actually showed a rare smile. Not bad, not bad. As expected of the person I took a fancy to, he really didn't let me down. Not only did he not take away his sister, but he also tracked us to our base. And now, he even used such a magical move. I don't know how much stronger he is compared to 3 years ago. Very good, I am more and more interested in pulling him into the Root base. After saying this, Danzo looked at the Root squad captain who was about to inform him. His eyes became cold as he said, "Is this how you patrol the perimeter of the base?" They only found out after such a big commotion. That's really something. The captain's legs began to tremble uncontrollably at this moment. Others may not know, but as a member of Root and a captain, the captain was very clear about Danzo's terror and power. Danzo-sama, it's not that we didn't patrol properly. You also saw that Nangongxia is so strong, even if we wanted to stop him. The captain hurriedly defended himself. After all, the captain was just an elite chunin. Nangongxia's Sword Chi Dragon Pearl plowed a 3-meter-deep hole on the ground just by brushing past it. If a small shrimp like the captain really rushed up, he would probably be ground to pieces in an instant. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.